I'm Don Lynch, and I was the film's historian.
And I'm Ken Marshall. I was credited as visual historian.
Oh, I should plug a few books while we're here.
Yes, and don't forget to log on.
Yeah, exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
This is the big one, the big movie, as I call it.
Well, the great feeling with the old footage as if it was taken from an old camera.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful way to begin it.
Sepia-toned effect. Oh, gosh.
Well, and all the extras that day, I think there were about 1,000 extras for what they called the sailing day. Oh, just imagine all those people in the different costumes and everything. What a job.
Yeah, that's one of my most vivid memories of the Fox Baja set down there on that one day with most of the photography for the departure scene from Southampton.
The music, too. I mean, it's very evocative.
Yeah, James Horner is great. Incredible score. Now, this is interesting here. This is a little bit of artistic license. Two mere submersibles would never descend so close to each other like this in real life. This is done for drama, to show them both going down at basically the same time, but actually they're always launched about 30 minutes apart.
Well, and they wouldn't have their lights on either because there's no need for the lights during the descent. But this is great because it really is the floor of the ocean. I mean, that moonscape that it has down there.
Yeah, that was an actual Mesotech image of Titanic from one of the real dives on the wreck that you just saw there, too.
Okay, take her up and over the bow rail.
Bill Paxton, of course, and Anatoly Sagalovich is an actual Russian pilot of the Mirrors.
Is it Sagalovich or Sagalevich? I don't know.
I don't speak enough Russian. Yeah. I couldn't tell you.
Just call him Tolya.
He declared he was my godfather when I was with him in a submersible. I don't know why.
We've got some actual photography on the wreck here. This is the real thing. However, this is not. Whenever you see the two miniatures together in a long shot like that, that's an incredible miniature that was built by Digital Domain.
Because there's no third submersible taking the picture, so if you see two in the same shot, you know that it's a miniature scene.
Out of the darkness like a ghost ship. Still gets me every time.
And it is so tiny. Inside those submersibles, you have so little room to move around.
Yeah, it has an interior wall-to-wall dimension of about 6.5 feet in this nickel steel sphere.
You're so full of shit, boss.
It almost looks more spacious here than it really is.
Yeah.
Here's another one of these miniature shots in a very, very foggy room to simulate the underwater murkiness and the low visibility, the fogginess of that depth, 2.5 miles beneath the North Atlantic. The miniature again. This is real footage of the real Titanic. You can see the leadsman's platform going by there, just moving out to the right. It's still intact there, or at least it was in 1995 when this was shot.
The combination of the actual footage and the miniatures is just seamless to me.
I think it's, one of the, absolutely, I agree completely. Incredible meshing of the real photography of the wreck with the miniature. Moving along the starboard side. You see the Mesotech in the background there. Kind of a sonar, radar outline of the actual structure of Titanic that you get from the subs.
And you always seem to go to the bow first because it's just the easiest thing to spot and the easiest thing to recognize.
The officers' quarters. Now we're back to the miniature here with all those windows faithfully reproduced.
Sure. Okay, there too.
To the edge of the stairwell, right on the roof of the officers' quarters.
Launching Duncan now.
There's Charlie Arneson with his headset on. He's the guy who runs the Fox Studios Baja down in Rosarito, Mexico today.
The lighting is so gripping in these scenes because just the spotlights shining and just illuminating certain areas is really fantastic to me.
Yeah, roger that. Okay, drop down and go into the first class gangway door.
You can see how cramped it is inside there where they're squirming around.
Yeah.
And these are great ROVs, remote-operated vehicles. I mean, they're so manipulative. It's wonderful to see these things that they designed for this to get in there and really move their arms around and everything.
We just saw one of the ROVs going through the open D-deck doorway where a door is missing on the port side and coming through those bronze-grilled doors. And,
right into the reception room.
Yeah. And here comes the other ROV. I think the first one was Duncan. This is Snoop Dogg now going down, and this is real footage inside Titanic. You can see fallen electrical cables back there and a light fixture from the ceiling. Here's one that was recreated in a set, underwater set. I actually own one exactly like this from the Olympic Titanic sister ship, and we made castings from it to make that reproduction that you just saw absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and this is so great here because all that really remains of people on the bottom are leather shoes and, in that case, a pair of eyeglasses because, of course, there are no human remains at that depth. They just don't last long enough.
An actual doll's head was seen by Robert Ballard in 1986 from his submersible, Alvin, and that's what inspired that scene there of a doll's head in the muck lying in the sediment.
It's a great visual because it reminds you that there were children, of course, on board the Titanic and involved in the sinking.
And there was some criticism from people watching this movie, that, there's not that much woodwork left in the Titanic. What a joke. What artistic license. And at times it's a little bit over the top. This is actual photography inside, I think, what was it, B-51, the sitting room?
Yeah, one of the beat decks.
Of the,
yes.
yeah. But there is, as we know today, a lot of wood remaining inside the ship down on D deck here. Especially if it's mahogany or oak, it survives surprisingly well. And Jim saw just enough of that in 1995 when he went down there that he knew that wood did survive, and he went ahead and made his set that way. Notice the brass bed that just went by there. That was a foretelling of things to come.
Yes.
Years later, in 2001, when we went back out there to shoot Ghosts of the Abyss, we found brass beds exactly in that condition on A deck and on C deck.
Hold it just a second. Go back to the room.
Still surviving. That's a pretty clever line in here about that somebody left the water on. I love that.
Oh, absolutely.
You smell
Not the most reverent thing, but
What's under it?
Give me my hands, man.
pretty good for the character. Typical Jim Cameron mechanics going on here.
Oh,
the
Absolutely. And it just looks fun.
Yeah.
You would just love to be playing around with those manipulative arms.
An old fallen door lying over the safe. More artistic license, of course, because in real life, an ROV doesn't have that kind of
Baby, are you seeing this, boss?
power to turn over something as heavy as a door. The ROV would just go with it.
And everything, of course, down there with the ROVs is all battery operated. There's nothing generating any power from the surface down to it.
Yeah.
And the academic Keldysh, the ship that actually is the best ship to use when you go down to the Titanic.
It's the largest research vessel in the world.
The last Russian research vessel still in use, I understand.
With the dedicated Mir 1 and Mir 2 submersibles that are stowed on the side of the ship, right on under some covers there. Of course, how did the safe get out of the wreck? That's something we just don't go into, do we?
Yeah, just a little license taken here.
Yeah.
This is some irreverence as well. Here he's got his hand inside the safe, just pushing things around.
Yeah, hardly the archaeological protocol that would really take effect. But he's not after real archaeology. He's after one thing. Money, diamonds.
Diamond. And it's not there.
Yeah. And some have said, paper wouldn't survive like that. And that's true. That's exactly what happens, especially if paper is anywhere near metal or leather.
Protected, if it's inside a case of some kind.
A lot of paper material has been recovered from Titanic and been restored, been conserved, and perfectly legible today.
So here we get to see some actual conservation going on.
Yeah.
Plenty of places it could be.
You can sort of imagine the excitement of, pulling things from the wreck and discovering, what's down there and what they brought up.
I love this clip coming up here where
The uncovering of the...
Brock Lovett happens to look in the monitor and he sees what's being... There it is. What the heck is that?
Sees it around her neck.
Yeah. Drops everything, goes over. Let me take a look at that.
Guys? We'll call you right.
This sketch, by the way, was done by Jim Cameron himself.
And it certainly is a good likeness. It looked just like Kate Winslet.
Yeah. The stone heart of the ocean is entirely fictional, though. That whole thing was made up for the film. There never was such an actual thing in real life.
And this is a great set. The character of Old Rose is based on Beatrice Woods, who was a sculptor who lived in Ojai near Malibu and lived to be 103. And so Jim really wanted to know, would a 100-and-some-year-old woman be active and alert and everything? And he sought out Beatrice Woods, and she absolutely was. And she was a wonderful inspiration for this character.
I would have liked to have met her at some point.
And Gloria Stewart does this so well.
Yeah.
And they aged her significantly.
She wasn't too happy about that.
Well,
she knew she had to, but she did not like having the age spots put on and the wrinkles added.
Fortunately, she's having a chance to grow into it, because she's, of course, still with us now. And she and Susie Amos, who plays her granddaughter, have become friends through working together on this film. I always got chills when I'd see the previews for the movie. The idea of this woman, after all these years, seeing the sketch of herself that she never thought she'd see again.
Right. We've been fortunate enough to know a number of Titanic survivors through the years, so we could really identify with what this would have been like.
Yeah, it's wonderful that she, as a character, gets in touch with us and makes herself known. She sort of has the upper hand here, which is really kind of clever. That here, even at 101 or whatever, she has this control over this expedition all of a sudden.
Found the heart of the ocean yet, Mr.
And she shows it. She carries it in her voice. And of course, in the script, her granddaughter doesn't even know any of this about her past. And that was almost, I don't want to say typical, but it was not unusual with Titanic survivors where their families didn't know years later that they had been on the Titanic. It was just something they never discussed again. And I'd met survivors whose children, when they were young, didn't even know that their parents had been on the Titanic.
Yeah. Ruth Blanchard is an example of that.
Yes.
Her kids just had the vaguest of ideas and had never been told the details.
Until they were much older.
Yeah.
Louis Abernathy, who plays Louis Bodine here, is great because this is very much like he really is. Just very outspoken, and I could just see him doing this in real life.
Oh, yeah.
And wearing that kind of T-shirt.
It's weird for us to see this, having been on the Keldysh.
Yeah, it is. It's old home week kind of looking at it and seeing it because and at the time, I couldn't put it in the exact context, and now I can, and I know exactly where they're walking when I watch it. And I always assumed that the helicopter had landed out on the stern, and in fact, it lands out on the bow of the ship.
Yeah, they welded on a whole platform out there just for the movie, didn't they?
I'm sure they must have, because there isn't normally a helicopter pad out there. It's so clever that she still travels well after all these years. Of course, that's sort of recreated when young Rose reaches the Titanic with the extra car full of luggage.
Mm-hmm. I'll take that, thank you. Get your hand off that wheelchair. The goldfish.
Yeah. It's so clever. I think it's kind of realistic, even having her photographs around her, because, very often elderly people, they need the context and the familiarity of their environment. Just a great line.
I do. I
love the inflection in her voice.
Yes. She's just looking across decades and decades. You can just see it. Just imagine.
It was so wonderful. And I regretted that Gloria did not win the Academy Award for this because I really felt that she'd earned it. That's my opinion. And you can see, even through all the makeup and everything, I mean, they've aged her, but she's so clearly Gloria Stewart. They have just adjusted her by just a few years is all, and it works so well.
Wasn't I
A dish? That's perfect.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to say that. Not those words, but she used the word dish.
It's great. It's a great line because it reminds you that she is of a different era entirely. And I love this where she still has the upper hand. She knows something he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I love the way she looks off at times. There's just this knowledge, this sort of poker face sometimes, like right then.
Yes. My
This whole
best friend. I love that.
it is. It's a wonderful line. And this whole section of the movie is great because it gives you so much of the background that you really need, to enjoy the rest of it as far as, the sinking and everything.
Mm-hmm. If you look at the individual pieces of jewelry there, and she's wearing them back then in 1912, looking all fresh and new.
And I love
comb.
the expression on her face that she's seeing these things that she never thought she'd see again.
Yeah. There it is. For people who pay attention watching the film, they'll notice it later,
Oh, yes.
in her hair back then.
That's such a great line about going back to Titanic, because of course it really is taking her back. And there's been so much comment and compliment about this one scene, because by explaining it to old Rose what happened, you basically explain to the audience who doesn't know anything about the Titanic what's happened. You get it out of the way now so you don't have to go into these technical details later during the excitement of the sinking.
Yes, all planned that way. It works very well. It accomplishes the little lesson here.
And it's great having Lou describe it because he gets so animated. He's so verbal and, just again is so much like him. He's telling her something as if she didn't know.
Yeah, this clinical, detached description.
And of course she knows. She was there. She went through it.
She's swallowing hard. Another favorite line of mine.
Yes. Oh, and she keeps the upper hand. By staying calm.
Was somewhat different.
somewhat different?
Gosh.
Bill is so great because you kind of always see in the back of his head that he's really here for the diamond. It's just like even when he asks her to share it, it's not like he wants to hear her story. You sort of hear it like he wants to know where the diamond is.
Yeah. Looking at footage of the underwater set here.
It must have been just, the idea is phenomenal that
And the real ship here.
she's looking at something that she really was there. And of course, the flashes of memory.
Yeah. You can even see the brass push plate on the left there, and the handle and the little tiny label above it that says pull. Just amazing that still survives in the wreck.
No.
Come on, Nana.
No.
It's wonderful that there was this sort of made-to-order phenomenal set down at the bottom of the ocean that just need to be reached to be able to make this film.
Tell us, Rose.
It's been 84 years.
It's okay. Just try to remember anything. Anything at all.
Do you want to hear this or not, Mr. Lovett?
Yeah, he has such impatience.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still the one controlling the situation.
84 years. And I can still smell the fresh paint.
Now that is exactly right. Survivors said that exact same thing.
Oh, that's what one of the cross-channel passengers we knew, Eileen Schaefer, she said whenever she smelled fresh paint for the rest of her life, it always reminded her of being on the Titanic.
And looking in, Ruth Blanchard and seeing the second-class dining saloon, the tables all set, the silverware never been used.
Exactly, that line is just delivered right into Rose.
Clearly one of the best, if not the best sequence in the whole film here.
Oh, the first dissolve.
The dissolve from the wreck to the incredible set, a combination of the full-size set with the 44-foot miniature built by Digital Domain, at least in that one scene.
And then here, the 800-foot prop, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost rude to call it that, but it
just gives me
a real
goosebumps.
ship.
Yeah.
And again, the 1,000 actors, the extras for sailing day, and all filmed in reverse. Because in order for the ship to face the correct way and yet still have the winds coming correctly to blow the smoke aft, they had to flop the film. So all the lettering on the buses and carriages is all reversed.
Mm-hmm. They had to build the big ship pointing northward so that the prevailing winds, which blew sort of southward, would work correctly. And that put the sun on the wrong side, so had to be flopped.
And this is great. Just the initial look at Rose's face.
The grand reveal.
And she's, as far as I can tell, the only person out of the 1,000 there wearing a white outfit. I mean, she's just dressed to stand out.
Yeah, yeah. And Deborah Scott, I'm sure, will speak to this, but the research that went into the costuming, the wardrobe, was phenomenal.
No,
not
absolutely.
not 1910, not 1911, not 1913. The fashions were changing very quickly back then, evolving, and
Yeah, I think
they
for
really endeavored to get the spring 1912 fashions. And
the advent of media, that you had regular newspapers and magazines coming out constantly and photographs in them and everything, that we'd reached a point by 1912 where fashions would change quickly, I believe.
And the safe to the parlor suite.
And here's all the luggage, just like she was, 84 years later.
You gotta hurry.
period vehicles.
It was great because when they flopped the film, American automobiles suddenly became English automobiles by having the wheel on the other side. So that worked out very well.
You can barely see the Southwestern Hotel in the background. Not called that today, but the building still exists at the end of the pier, off into the town of Southampton and going up the gangway there. The rivets on the hull, the details on the hull, I just can't say enough about.
It was phenomenal.
That's what I was hoping for, and that's what Jim wanted too. He wanted that kind of rugged, cold, hard reality of what the Titanic really looked like from the outside. And the sheds, the White Star dock there, and the passenger sheds, which you can see there.
Yes,
way below Titanic in the background.
This bar scene is kind of funny because visiting the set, it was such a tiny, tiny room. You don't appreciate until you get on there that they only build as much as they need, and it was a very, very small bar. And the cards even, because of course they wouldn't be laminated with plastic back then. That was very unusual and new.
Mm-hmm.
And so cards are just paper cards, and they're going to bend and they're going to wear out. And hand-rolled cigarettes. All the little details are just right there.
Now, there's no actual bar that had a view like that, looking right onto Titanic. That's another little artistic.
Yeah, because that would be out on the dock area, and of course the bars were, just outside the docks and in town. But it works well. You'll love to see the ship through the window there. And really the people in Southampton, the day the ship sailed, I met people who said that basically every student played hooky so they could go find some good viewpoint and see the ship and watch it sail.
Yeah, despite the fact that her sister ship Olympic, which had her maiden voyage in June of 1911, that got most of the press. But in spite of that, Titanic's maiden voyage still was a big event.
Well, especially in Southampton, because, of course, the people who worked on board were all locals, and so it was very important to them. Such a great scene. Of course, these guys' lives are saved by losing this hand at poker.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is fake because
In 5 minutes.
these characters are all fictional at this point.
Come on here. I'm down here. Hi, stop now. You're a couple of regular swells. Practically goddamn royalty.
It's the expanse of this set. I mean, the fact that the actors could actually run the full length of the ship like this.
Huge. And even some of the extras, they had so many that even some of them are mannequins. I think usually the ones they expect to be out of camera range, but they even dressed up mannequins in period clothing and had them tied up here and there so that they could fill a background.
Up on the passenger galleries, up on the sheds.
And of course, if you're a third class, you had to go through a physical inspection, and they didn't want any lice brought on board the ship, and of course, they didn't want any diseases brought to America.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Jack just says here is, I don't have any lice, I'm American. Something like that. I missed the actual line here.
The bitches in the world, you know?
In the labyrinth of third class.
Yeah. I got to say something. You just saw them removing the ropes around those bollards on the dock there, and it's another thing I'm particularly proud of, that those bollards are recreated just exactly from actual measurements from the bollards that still exist on the quay in Southampton today.
Exactly. The same dock is there, same bollards. The railroad tracks that run through there are mostly all there.
Yeah. Incredibly complex shots, these.
Yes.
You know, live action, miniatures, full-size sets. A miniature here, of course. This was a huge miniature of the stern of Titanic, which I think was 1/8 scale, if I recall, that Digital Domain made.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Because they had so many different models, just for even just sections of the hull. It was incredible that they did so much work and just repeated the ship over and over in different sizes and forms, but basically all true.
This scene here is taken from an actual historic photograph of people right in that same position on the edge of the dock.
I remember talking to one lady in Southampton who'd gone down there to see her father off and waving the white handkerchief, and she said they'd even rented a car just to take them down there for the day. And the typical third class, all being lost trying to find their rooms. He had one interpreter for all the nationalities, you know, and I'm sure he probably maybe knew a smattering of a few languages, but he probably couldn't cover everybody on board.
Nice to meet you.
During the sinking later, such chaos, of course, because people didn't speak the languages and such.
Who says you get top bunk, huh?
What a Sven.
Ben luckily got left behind.
Yeah. And the contrast now between third class and then, of course, the nicest room on first class with the private promenade.
And there's that same lacquered brass hearth there. Fireplace, not a real fireplace, but didn't actually burn fire in there. This is in a room fashioned after a Regency room in Titanic, the sitting room, which actually was occupied by the Strausses. C-Deck, C-55.
The Macy's department store people.
Mm-hmm.
They're fascinating.
You know, this wonderful artwork from the period. And apparently what they did was they chose artwork of which there were several versions by the same artist. And so that way they could have something that was recognizable and could justify the fact that it still exists somewhere today.
Put it in the wardrobe.
Yeah, that was arguably the most gaudy of the rooms on the ship, with that gilded mahogany. And another incredible interior, the D-deck entry with the elevator, the bank of elevators on the right. And the lobby, looking toward the reception room, Molly Brown coming in here.
And she was what Mother called.
Look at that look. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Francis Fisher's expression.
See, I think Francis Fisher was overlooked too. And I mean, I wish you could give more than one award.
Absolutely.
Her steely looks and her acting and everything, I think was just...
Yeah, the whole movie to me was so well cast. Not just the fictional characters, of course, who are wonderfully done here, but even the actual people. Captain Smith looks like Captain Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the other characters do as well. And the accuracy in the casting for the appearance is really exceptional.
Here comes the sequence which Jim called in his treatment his ode to Titanic, I believe.
Oh, yes.
The power coming up and...
Well, exactly. Just to give you the impression and the real impression, I guess you'd say, of how powerful these engines were and how huge they were, and really what it took to run a ship.
They were the largest reciprocating engines in the world at that time.
Probably some of the largest today, down on the bottom.
Yeah.
And what it took to run such a ship, I mean, the actual shoveling of coal, I mean, in some ways it's modern machinery. In other ways, it's still very labor intensive.
Yeah.
The hardworking firemen had to just, face those flames all during their watches just to keep the engines going and keep the fires up.
This is just great. This surpasses all my hopes and expectations, for this film, knowing what Jim was capable of in terms of effects.
Oh, yes.
To recreate Titanic, to breathe life back into her as he did with this one sequence alone.
Oh, what's always called the helicopter shots.
Yeah.
Films. They're really fantastic.
Yeah, it's showing this kind of scale with the smoke coming out of the funnels back there. Oh gosh. And that it's that bright, crisp sun and the sparkling ocean in the background there. That's what I'm talking about with the life.
Oh, it is just so real.
It's not just dismal nighttime, approaching an iceberg stuff. You get this dance in the sunlight, this aliveness.
Which people on board had to have enjoyed themselves, because when you're at sea, especially back then, these people work, 6-7 days a week. And for a week at sea, it's a vacation for them. And they can go out and they can just stand on deck and enjoy leisurely time. And for so many third-class passengers, that wasn't really true. They couldn't do that every day of their lives.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the contrast down below decks.
Yeah.
Keeping the engines going.
The minions that shovel the coal so that the millionaires can sip their champagne.
Yeah, and who in the end were the heroes, the ones who kept the power up, the fires and everything to keep the lights on as the ship was sinking. Famous line.
Gosh, yeah. There were some who complained that, this would never be allowed. Passengers could never get up to the tip of the bow like this. But it's not true either. I myself, in the 1960s, was allowed right up to the very front of the bow on some cruise ships.
Well, and Ruth Blanchard, the Titanic survivor we were mentioning earlier, she went as a 3-year-old out on the very tip of the bow of a ship that she was on and rode in rough weather, where she said the bow rode up and down like an elevator.
That was the fun of it.
And obviously nobody stopped her, and she was in full view of the bridge. I love the smoke coming out of the funnels here. I have to comment that when they were making the smoke come out of the set, my eyes always seemed to water. There was something in that fake smoke that just seemed to irritate my eyes, and they'd start watering instantly the second they started lighting those little pots with the smoke.
Yeah.
And our master shipbuilder, Mr. Andrews here, designed her.
Yeah, Bruce Ismay, the president of the
My
White Star
memory of
Line.
being down on the set was the smell of diesel fumes in the air all the time from all the generators always running.
Oh,
And the sound of the generators just constantly supplying the lighting and all this stuff.
Supremacy would never be challenged.
Now, this is another little artistic stretch here. The room is accurate.
oh yes.
The veranda palm court here on the port side aft, just right beyond the smoking room, which you can see in the background, the revolving door. But actually, all you could get in the palm courts were very light refreshment, finger sandwiches and so forth, not actual full-on meals like this,
With very little mint sauce.
where he orders the lamb and so forth.
You like lamb, right?
That's
But it's such a great scene because, of course, it kind of sets their relationship, and then it allows her to walk out on deck immediately afterwards when she gets fed up.
that's the compromise that you make when you're making a film,
Exactly.
Was it you, Bruce?
Well, yes, actually.
in order to have that access to that particular deck and for it all to flow. These little artistic changes are made in a few spots.
Strength.
Do you know of Dr. Freud, Mr. Ismay? His ideas about the male preoccupation with size might be...
This is great, this wonderful line where Rose gets to show how educated she is, more so than Bruce Ismay, the head of the whole White Star Line. A little more well-read, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
She's a pistol, Cal. Hope you can handle her.
Well, I may have to start minding what you
In the background, you see this
won't I, Mrs.
unfortunate hat on this one woman.
Oh,
That it's just, I think it was just plastic flowers on something, which, doesn't show up that way on film, of course. But it's just great. It's wonderful because I just always felt sorry for that poor woman who had to wear it.
that's the hand of Jim Cameron again, actually doing those sketches.
Yeah, it's an artist ship. He's English, no? No, it was built in Ireland. 15,000 Irishmen built
Having a little bit of history of the ship here at a great time.
Yeah.
The French Bulldog. I mean, Jim was right down to the type of dogs that were on the ship. I mean, the level of accuracy is great.
It lets us know where we rank.
It was survivor Eva Hart who specifically mentioned seeing the French Bulldog, fell in love with it on Titanic.
Yeah, and actually the man who discovered the breed was on board. They were going to have a dog show on Monday. Well, the ship, of course, didn't survive long enough.
Yeah.
There's that unfortunate hat again. That same woman is now out on deck.
Yeah.
And so is Rose.
Oh, forget it, Boyle. You just like have angels fly out of your heart.
You know, you could have so many different commentaries for a film like this. You could have a whole one just devoted to the actors and the dialogue and so forth. I'm so focused, of course, on the sets, and I'm constantly tripped up by looking at the details of the sets in the background and what was accomplished well and what we had to fake and what we had to get by with. And it's scenes like this that always I just marvel at. I can never get enough of soaking in the ambiance of the detail.
Just to walk the decks and hear the dining room. That was my first experience with the set, was to see the dining room. And I couldn't believe it. It was almost being transported in time to be there. And I kept looking around and saying, well, where will the Clarks sit and where will the Astors sit? And I'd remind myself that they're not coming. They're not going to be here. But it was so accurate. The film set was just wonderful.
Not only was the set incredible, but then the actors in their costuming all the time being around.
Oh, yeah.
Which just set the atmosphere, and you just had to blink in amazement. It felt as if you were in a time machine. Here's another one of these wide views distant off the set that just really is what he built that whole set for, to get this kind of a sense of the full thing going on, which would be hard to do with CG. I suppose today you could do it. And
the huge cranes, if you remember, I mean, here the ship was so huge and so tall, and yet these cranes would tower over it. And of course, they're carrying the camera for shots like that. I don't know if you remember when we first visited the set and Jim said we could go anywhere we wanted. The only rule was that we couldn't stand under a crane or in front of a moving vehicle.
Yeah, I remember.
Makes sense.
Got the docking bridge behind her with the canvas weather covering over the various instruments up there. And
listen, to digitally add the water beneath the stern right here.
Yes.
I mean, it's breathtaking because you really feel the height.
Huge green screens had to be set up and lit just right, for each and every take so that they could be matted out later. And
it's just brings back memories looking up at the stern because, of course, we used to walk around there underneath the stern all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Look up at it like that.
He's got the stern lamp in exactly the right place there, down on the railing, down below the jackstaff, below the flagpole there. It always struck me that the water wasn't moving by quite fast enough, though, in that scene. When you look straight down, it seems like the ship's going a little too slow, but...
I never noticed. It never occurred to me at all. I think it's kind of ironic, of course.
See, I mean, that's like 10 knots, well, I could be wrong. It just doesn't seem like it's going fast enough, but I'm sure Jim worked that all out.
Oh, hopefully so. And the irony to me in this scene, of course, is that she's very near that sign that says to beware of the propellers.
Yes, which is perfectly right on accurate, too.
I mean it.
Ship had one. Had 3 of them, actually, around the stern, around the fantail.
It seems to me if you were on that side of the railing where you could read the sign, it was probably too late.
In reality, there actually was no light sticking out of the flagpole right there, but that's one of those things that you just had to do. Jim had to put something there it's the compromise between...
To light it. You had to light the set and you had to show it.
To make the movie work and make the actors stand out and so forth and get that drama in there.
You let go and I'm going to have to jump in there after you.
This is so great. Just
Don't be absurd.
a psychological thing of him, okay, well, I have to go too. And now she's responsible for his life as well. And then, of course, you see the sign right next to her there about staying clear of the propellers.
Tell you the truth, I'm a lot more concerned about that water being so cold.
And it's funny, the life rings that are up on the docking bridge, of course, out of reach at the moment. But, if you're up on the docking bridge, they're easier to throw off the side of the ship. And everybody always assumes that they said Titanic on them, and they didn't. They just didn't have any lettering on them.
Mm-mm. Completely blank white. There were also a couple of them down along the railing on the poop deck, down at deck level too, on either side of the cranes, I believe.
I grew up there near Chippewa Falls. I remember when I was a kid, Me and my father, we went ice fishing out on Lake Wissota.
Just the look on her face.
Ice fishing.
You know, she's like,
Why are you telling me this?
This has nothing to do with what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah. Can't you see I'm trying to kill myself?
Seemed like, kind of an indoor girl.
Yeah, that's such a great line.
Anyway,
I always love that.
I fell through some thin ice. And I'm telling you.
And it's funny because you wonder, I remember years ago talking to somebody on board the Rotterdam, one of the officers, and about people jumping over. And, he said that it does happen at sea. People do jump and they always leave something. They'll either take off their shoes and leave them there on the deck, or they'll put their watch around the railing or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then just for whatever reason, he said, when people jump overboard at sea, they always leave something so that, somebody knows that they did.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have a choice.
One of my worst nightmares would be to fall from a ship at sea at night. I'll tell you.
Well, you can
I mean, any other way, but don't make me go that way.
kiss it goodbye, because
If I survive the fall, I got to look back and watch that warm ship with all the lights glowing, sailing off into the distance. And, it's just like,
there goes the party and, you're out at sea.
complete nightmare. Because, if you survive, what if you change your mind? You hit the water, I think I don't want to do this. Well, there's nothing you can do. You're done.
Yeah. Of course, in 1912, shipping lanes were a little better well-traveled than they are today, I think. So hopefully just wait a few minutes and catch another ship.
Well,
I mean, I'm being facetious, of course.
very wishful thinking. All those beads on her dress. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. It's just, and, the level of detail into the clothing, because, of course, a first-class woman back then would have had dresses that were, probably bought in Paris. I think, in fact, one of the first-class ladies even said, well, you don't live in Paris and buy your dresses in New York. And all the hand beading and things that would have gone into, a dress normally. And, of course, here they're recreating. I think they probably made several of this particular dress just for the scene, just in case.
Now pull yourself up.
It's such a warehouse of clothing, and, the whole just, department full of seamstresses and dressmakers and things.
Mm-hmm. Scoured the world for the period costumes. Many of them are actual real gowns from that era.
It's interesting the way the deck looks like it's angled right there as the gentlemen come running up, and it is, because later when they'd angled the ship down was when they came back and filmed the one scene of these crewmen running back there. And so when you sort of see it, you think the camera is angled, but it isn't. The deck is actually tilting.
Mm-hmm.
Fetch the mast for arms. It's completely unacceptable.
Referring to the sheer of the ship?
No, when they when they did the sinking scenes and they angled the set down.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
And so
Need to listen more
they
carefully.
came back and, filmed a little extra bit here.
I'm getting sucked into the movie here, and I'm not tracking on what you're saying. Yeah.
Really? I was leaning over and I slipped.
This is so great.
She plays the frail, feminine, the whatever.
Yeah, where she can't think of it. And I love Bernard Fox, Colonel Gracie's line, where women and machinery do not mix. There was such an attitude.
Oh, yes.
That women could not be mechanically or financially minded.
And almost went over himself.
You wanted to see this. You wanted to see the propellers.
Like I
Straight
said,
face.
women and machinery do not mix.
Bernard Fox was fun. He still talks about how, he talked to us about the characters and everything, and he asked me, about, what Colonel Gracie was like. And I said, well, he was a moocher. And unfortunately, he didn't understand what that meant. And I remember him talking to some of the other actors, and they finally decided that what I meant was that Colonel Gracie was a sponge. Mm-hmm. And so he decided that if anybody offered him a cigar, he would take two. And that would be his way of displaying that Colonel Gracie would sort of take advantage.
Mm-hmm.
The going rate for saving the woman you love.
Rose is displeased. To do.
It's such a great line there, about the price on her head sort of thing,
Mm-hmm. That's all I'm worth.
$20 will cover it.
Mm-hmm.
To regale our group with your heroic tale.
Come to dinner and regale us with your tale.
Of course, he thinks he's just going to embarrass him.
Yeah, because this ought to be interesting.
It was so funny to see Billy Zane in character all the time down there on the set. And so, after the filming was all over and had a chance to talk to him, and what a nice guy he is. But, in my mind, because he always sort of looked cranky, and I think he was just staying in character. And, I'm not experienced around actors enough, I guess. I just assumed that he was a cranky kind of guy, and I found out that wasn't the case at all.
It's interesting.
The young lady slipped so suddenly.
David Warner, his second time on a Titanic. He was in the made-for-television movie SOS Titanic some years earlier.
Yeah, that's right. It was about 1980?
1980, I think. There's several people here. Bernard Fox was in A Night to Remember. So there's several people had a second chance at Titanic movies.
And here we see she was holding the mirror that you saw earlier in the film after it was recovered.
This is such a great camera shot, and the way she appears, I think, like a Botticelli angel, I think. I think it's the artist, who painted people who look like that.
And what am I looking at? The reproduced White Star Line ashtray sitting on the dresser.
Well, she does smoke.
Perhaps as a reminder of my feelings for you.
Heck, look at that rock.
Yeah. I love the line about it being overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so many lines that came out of the movie that people just use because they picked it up from Titanic, and it's just so funny. I hear them all the time, and I know exactly where people first heard those and brought them into their use.
It's overwhelming.
That's for royalty.
He makes such a good point, too, about that they're royalty, because in a sense, the very, very wealthy in 1912 were American royalty. Certainly, as a democratic society, we didn't have titles. You had to go over to Europe and marry someone to get one. And so it was the very, very wealthy, the powers of industry that everyone looked up to, and they really were respected as if they were royalty.
I love that. Her face right there just looks like a Dorothy Gibson. Not there, but when she was looking to the side, it was just...
I have to say, I love it when Kate Winslet smiles. I mean, she really lights up the screen.
Oh, yeah.
She uses that to great effect in a few places here.
And another one of my favorites.
Oh, yes.
Crane shot off the huge set down in Rosarito.
I always would get sort of choked up at this scene because it's just daytime, everybody being normal. And, you think about the people, for example, the people we knew who we'd interviewed who'd been on the Titanic and think, they're there. There's no turning back. They can't get off, and they're headed towards something really, really horrible. And I always sort of felt that when I would look at this one scene and just see everybody just strolling around and acting very natural.
And the survivors that we've known, like Edwina Mackenzie, for example, just commented on what a happy ship she said it was. And it was her only voyage. It was her first trip, wasn't it?
No,
or was
her
second?
third. She'd been across twice before.
Yeah. And she said it was just the crew was so happy. Everyone was always singing.
Yeah, and
she's actually commented to another passenger, it's just too good to last long.
Yeah, she said that one of the stewards told her that he said that, we've all come from different ships and we're all new to each other and yet we're getting along so well. And, and several other passengers commented on the same thing, that it just did seem almost too good to last.
All the people in it and the inertia of my life.
The extras here, having been an extra for a week on the set, for example, the lady in the background with the big bow on her head, she's blonde and she's one of the Mexican extras. And it was amazing down on the set because they found so many Mexicans of European descent to work as extras that you would see someone who was blonde and blue-eyed and you didn't know if you could even talk to them if they spoke English or not.
Right. You'd walk up to one and say, do you have the time? And you just...
And they'd
no entiendo, no comprendo. Oh, I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Yeah, they had a few who spoke, both English and Spanish who would translate very often.
That's the real ocean in the background, by the way. The set was built right on the beach, basically.
Yes.
So to utilize the actual, you can see a little bit of surf there breaking on the right that just went by. That's actual surf breaking on the shore in the distance. But they would try to keep the camera low enough that the real shoreline didn't show.
Exactly.
So they were able to get that.
And if you were to walk around either the side of the ship, you would see the hills of Mexico. These barren, dry hills.
Off to the left there. Every now and then I hear, like right now, there's just a tweak of it peeking over a ventilator now and then. But
I've never seen it. I haven't ever had that opportunity. It works so well.
I've never studied it to actually pick them out either. But the rivet counters out there have pointed out once or twice where they let a few things slip past, but they're very, very minor.
Oh, and of course, going down to visit the set at Rosarito, just to drive down the highway in Mexico and then see the Titanic berth there down the shore, that was always a fantastic sight.
There's hardly any words to describe what it was like to see that thing out there. this virtually full-size ship recreated in a movie set, but not looking like a movie set, being basically fully completed on one side at least.
Oh, exactly.
The hull.
One here on the deck scenes, both sides of the top deck were finished, and even down to the deck chairs. I mean, they're just right on as far as accurate. But actually, they're props. I mean, they are a little flimsy. I mean, they tended to break after a while. They were never meant to last. I'm probably insulting the prop makers, but, it just seemed to me that the deck chairs, like so much of the set, were not made to be permanent.
Well, they certainly weren't. With the damp nights and a few little sprinkles that occurred, the plywood would start to warp a little bit, and they'd have to repair it. There was constant maintenance going on.
Oh, yeah, the decks would actually buckle because the decking would fill with water. It would soak it up, and then it would just buckle up, and they'd have to come in and take out boards and put in thinner ones. And it's always funny to visit the set if it had been raining because you could see where the buckling was happening.
Used her several times.
It's just funny. I feel like we're stealing some of the magic out of all this by giving these details.
Yeah.
And because to look at the film, we keep commenting about how accurate it is. And it is. I mean, you look at it and it's just right on. And to walk the decks and everything was just an emotional experience. And yet the reality is, we also saw the side of it where it was a prop and things broke and things wore out.
She had a good sense of humor, though.
Little boy in the background who plays my son later in the film.
She used to sit at this bar every night, wearing every piece of jewelry she owned, just waiting for her long.
Again, it's the sunshine that just does it for me. Somehow. It's something we've never seen really in the past. The first Fox film, Titanic in 1953, it was all staged on a set, and it looked like it was staged on a set. You had these multiple suns. It was sort of an overcast feel all the time whenever there was a day shot. And this is the real sunlight. You're out in the real breeze, and it just...
Yeah, on streaming through the windows here.
It comes through.
And it's basically the Titanic story is a nighttime story, and yet, there's so much daytime in this movie, and that accounts for the fact that it's long enough to be able to contribute that way.
Hello, girls. I was hoping I'd catch you.
There again, the look on
Yes.
Frances Fisher's face as she's rising from the table.
And the actress who plays the Countess, I mean, she was cast, partly for her profile. There's a very famous photograph of the profile of the Countess, and this woman has that profile, and it's a perfect fit.
Now talk about this scene, Don, about the historical.
Well, this Mrs. Lyons, and is sort of represented by the lady in the background, was sitting in the reception room having tea and heard Captain Smith and Bruce Ismay discussing the speed of the ship and the fact that the boilers were working well, the machinery was working well, and Bruce Ismay basically decided that the ship should arrive in New York a day ahead of schedule. And that was sort of his, command to Smith, pretty much to say that, she would beat the Olympics maiden voyage time and get into New York a day early. And now the pressure, of course, is on Captain Smith to make a good crossing and not slow down. And yet, at the same time, he's receiving warnings from other ships that there's ice ahead. It's so great here because it always impressed me so much in this scene how Kate, as Rose, she has such a great American accent. She really can do, I think, whatever voice she wants.
Yeah, I don't know how actors can do that. That's amazing to me.
All these key little things that they're talking about that show up later in the film, and her little photographs back on the ship. Such a genuine scene with the little back and forth between them.
Yeah. Genuine, but not preferred by me.
Well,
when Jim was in the early script stages, his scriptment, I remember I was vehemently offended by this whole sequence. He said, no, this is what they do, the kids this age. And I just said, it's just not fitting. It's not respectful. Can't you teach Rose to ride a horse by having her straddle a ventilator motor or something like that, or teach her how to do sit-ups or anything. I mean, push-ups, anything, but spitting, no. He says, I think this will work. And he was right.
Well, it does work.
It's not an unpopular sequence.
No, some people, it's their favorite.
But I don't, it's not one of my favorites. Here again with the icy stare. Oh, it's just priceless. Look at that.
As if looks could kill.
Yeah.
Molly steps right up to saves the day. It's so well scripted. The insect that has to be squashed.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, late afternoon time when they filmed this. And of course, the Pacific out there.
Yeah. And the bugle announcing the call to dinner. Just the way they did back then.
Yes. You'd announce not only dinner, but earlier than that, you announce when it's time to go dress for dinner. You get to take credit for some of this because Jim had asked at one point, how do I get Leo into a tuxedo? Someone who's obviously not got this kind of clothes. And this was how. Just say, well, have Molly Brown sort of take him under her wing. And the real Molly Brown, Margaret Brown, had a son who was 23, which is the age that Jack is supposed to be. That's such a good line, but shining up like a new penny.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one of your paintings.
Very dramatic scene. My one objection, every single porthole is lit, and it's all lit the same brightness, which just kind of grates on me.
It always struck me that when the ship was sinking, all the survivors all said that every porthole was a light, and so it really comes across the way people remembered it, even though you're right.
Yeah.
That wouldn't necessarily be true.
Yeah, and here we are jabbering over the best set in the whole.
Oh,
I mean, this thing,
phenomenal.
Is unbelievable.
Just incredible.
A lot of care put into building this staircase, reproducing the balusters, the balustrade just perfectly, the carving there on her sister ship Olympic, which was called Honor and Glory, Crowning Time, the clock panel. No photographs that are known to exist for Titanic's actual grand staircase. So this is all based off the known measurements and photographs of Olympic.
And most of it, Honor and Glory, Crowning Time, is fiberglass. It's not carved wood on this.
Yeah.
It's just on the movie set, it's fiberglass.
On the set, yeah, that was. Most of the set, though, is actual oak. The columns, the paneling is all real oak, surprisingly. A lot of time and expense put into...
and worth it. It shows.
I've always been really touched and flattered by Leo holding his hand behind his back like that, the way he does, because that's exactly what I did in one of my paintings of the Grand Staircase in the book Titanic: An Illustrated History. And there he is practicing, like the gentleman. And in one of my paintings, there's a guy standing with his hand in the small of his back doing exactly that at the base of the staircase. And I didn't know that Jim had filmed that. And I was thrilled when I saw the movie the first time.
One of the extras told me that, of course, she'd seen that painting as well. And she had said, and the woman in the painting was wearing a red dress, and I was on the staircase wearing a red dress. And I mentioned that to Jim, how excited she was. And he said, well, it was no accident.
Wow. Yeah.
Sort of the dream come true for Jack.
Yeah, this is the best staircase that's ever been done for a Titanic movie. It is virtually flawless.
Oh, it really was. It just nothing I've ever seen anything replicated like it. I mean,
and
it's just incredible.
Not just one deck that they could reconform to be different decks. It wasn't just one landing. This staircase set went down to the next deck and then down to a third deck, which was the reception room. So there were 3 complete landings that were built for this movie. Here's
absolutely.
The bottom landing, the one coming onto the D-deck landing, the reception room. And you could walk up and down these stairs and just literally feel as if you were on the real ship. For all intents and purposes, you were. There was really no difference.
The ceilings were there. All the walls are there. I mean, you really can walk out of her stateroom, down the corridor, down the staircase, through the reception room, into the dining room, and never know that you're on a set.
Yeah. Not like a typical set where there's one wall missing or these wild walls that could be moved and, it was all intact, and Jim had to film within the confines of the real ship. And that's just what he did. The reception room set, for example, down here, the lowest landing on the staircase. I'm at a loss for words. I just keep going on with all the compliments. But I mean, it was the full width of the ship and almost the full length fore and aft as the real reception room was.
Oh, yes. It felt perfect. This is a great scene where you get to be introduced to some of the other characters who we're going to encounter throughout the film.
Just looking down the length, looking aft in the dining saloon.
Yeah, just in shining, because the real Titanic was brand new, and that's reflected here in the sets. It just looks perfectly new.
Pleasure. Oh, Jack. Are you of the Boston Dawsons?
No, the Chippewa Falls Dawsons, actually.
John Jacob Astor, the wealthiest man on board. This is a great scene where they have with the dinner party and everything. It really is. It's a great way to bring so many of the characters together and sort of highlight them, but then sort of show Jack's interaction with them and how, in some cases, of course, Cal looks down on him, whereas, Molly's just right there helping him along. And it's really interesting the way the others all sort of accept him.
I hear they're quite good on this ship.
The best I've seen, ma'am.
This was one day where you were there too, Don, weren't you?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
We were actually there just a few feet away off to the left behind Jim, filming these scenes in the dining room. I'll always remember it.
Quite a fine artist.
It was kind of funny to me that, Jim made a comment that one of the best views would be behind him. And I realized, well, of course, he has the monitor and he's seeing it the way it's going to look on screen, whereas I'm standing back and wanting to look at the whole room. And I guess that's the difference between me and a filmmaker is, of course, he's looking at what the audience is going to see, and I'm just looking at what I want to see all around the room and just taking in every detail.
Yeah.
He knows every rivet in it, don't you, Thomas?
Your ship is a wonder, Mr. Andrews, truly.
Thank you, Rose.
At one break in the filming, Jim came over and said, Ken, Don, I want to, come here, I want to show you something. I thought he was going to take us across to the other corner of the room to show us some structural thing or a question for me. Would this table really be set like this? And instead he stopped right here at the main table and began introducing us to each of the actors around the table. And Kathy Bates was the first one, who was very, very gracious.
Oh, incredibly so. She's not like the characters she often so often plays. She really is just a wonderfully polite, gracious woman.
She had read our book, Titanic, an Illustrated History, and complimented Don on his writing and me on the illustrations, and was just very, very flattering. And one by one, Jim took us around. We spoke with
and everybody, I remember, wanted to know about the person they were portraying. They wanted to know what they were like, and they wanted details about them. And it was kind of fun to go up and say, well, you're so-and-so, and this is the kind of person they were, and this is what they did in their life.
Not knowing what's going to happen or who I'm going to meet, where I'm going to wind up. Just the other night, I was sleeping under a bridge, and now here I am.
Great contrast with, the young man who eats and talks with his mouth full.
Yeah. I remember that day when they shot that Jim had a lot of smoke going. They have the smoke machines to give more atmosphere to the set and to make it seem larger and vaster. There was a little bit of smoke, and I just don't see it here.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's the beauty of it. It doesn't really show on film. You get the effect, but it doesn't show.
It really, when you're there, you can see it, but you barely notice it here in the film.
Well, and I remember, of course, it was so hot because it is an enclosed set. As we commented, every wall is there, and they had to bring in huge ventilation hoses, which I think are standard in filmmaking, but it was just incredibly hot between, breaks when they would have those things turned off, and the room would just heat up again.
Yeah.
Next, he'd be branded in the smoking room.
Well,
big tubes of nylon piping just pumping in the air conditioning desperately.
So hard on the actors, especially when they're in full costume, because they don't even get to break a sweat. They're not allowed.
No, I'll stay here.
There you go, Molly.
joining us, Dawson? You don't want to stay out here with the women, do you?
Yeah, you can definitely see the smoke in the background now.
Yeah. See, if you know about it, if you're aware of it, then you
now
look
that
for
I've
it.
clicked into it, and okay, that's what I remember. Because it was billowing out into the reception room and up the stairs and so forth. And I thought, what are you doing? This is too much of this fog junk. But I didn't know enough about filmmaking at the time, the reason for it, and that it really does add, it adds dimension.
Dimension, exactly.
And truly adds atmosphere, not to be, silly about it, but that's the perfect word for it, atmosphere.
I guess that was a very long day of filming. It went on until about 3 in the morning. And the extras so often have little games that they play in the background that, will never show up on film. Like where they, wrap their foot around the cord of one of the table lamps, just slide it across the table and things. But of course it doesn't show, and you'd be hard pressed to find that, I'm sure, if you even looked. This is great because the staircase, again, is sort of a focal point.
Yeah.
Where he gets to meet up with her again, and, they keep coming back to it throughout the film. And it with good reason, because it's such a great set.
So you want to go to a real party?
I should have mentioned when the staircase was being shown that it is actually built slightly wider than the actual staircase was on the real Titanic. About 15% wider at the landing. Simply because people are bigger today than they were back then. Significantly taller than they were in 1912. And so there was a little bit of artistic fudging there just so the staircase would look correct for the actors today.
Yeah, it would look smaller otherwise if you put today's sized people on it. Back in third class, it's just kind of funny because, I'd mentioned earlier how this was sort of a vacation for so many of these people. And these impromptu sort of parties would break out where people either in the lounge or the general room, as they called it, would just have a party and just, dance and everything. And all these different nationalities would come together. And
now, aren't we forward, though, in the third class open space at this point? Or are we...
Yeah, but I think that is the general room in the forward open space.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the extras saying that this was became a very hot set to work in.
But fun also, because it's kind of fun when you get to party.
I can't do this.
We're gonna have to get a little bit closer. Like this.
And it's always interesting to me to look now because there are a lot of faces in the background of people I now recognize. Either I recognize them because I've seen the movie enough that I see the same faces over and over again, or they're people we just got to know through working with the film and getting to know these people very well. And so now I know where to look and pick out people I recognize.
Yeah. All these years later, I still see for the first time scenes with recognizable faces that I've never noticed before. I always see something new every time I see this film.
Oh, absolutely.
There's just so much to absorb, so much detail.
This Irish band, goes out and still performs and everything today. And, come to town every so often, and it's fun to go hear them perform. And they're dancing on a hatch cover, so it's a very convenient dance floor. But of course, cargo would have been brought down through the middle of this room and loaded down below.
Mm-hmm. When in port, and then at sea they were covered over. It's an amazing amount that was learned by building the ship full size and playing it out in real time. Things like this, for example, that you never would have thought about. Well, of course, they could have danced on this.
Yeah.
Who would have thought of that if you hadn't built the set and really walked the walk,
Exactly.
And there were many, many more examples like that.
Well, and if all the benches were taken, then you just sit around on it and, sit down your drink next to you. Now, the painting in the background in this scene, you worked on that painting, I think, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It was initially finished by an artist working with Lightstorm Entertainment, and Jim Cameron wanted it, I think, taken a little farther and worked on a little more, and he said, would you like to finish this thing out? And I had a photograph of the actual painting, just a black and white one, done by the original artist, Norman Wilkinson.
This is the very first film that ever actually showed the correct painting in the smoking room.
That's right. Class. First movie.
You think you're big, tough men? Let's see you do this.
It's a good thing we know that she already knows how to smoke, so she didn't cough when she did that.
Yeah.
Hold it up.
I seem to recall that in between takes, she and DiCaprio would sneak away. If one went, the other went. They were gone, and they were always out having a smoke or something like that, whenever chance they could get.
Maybe all right.
Lovejoy on the prowl.
Yeah.
Definitely the villain.
It makes a very good villain. The lady who said Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, is funny. She did a voiceover for this, And she had such trouble lining up her voice with the pace at which she spoke it on the set. And it was just funny to kind of watch that, how she couldn't quite reproduce that exact same pace. She really struggled with it. Linda Kearns is her name.
Mm-hmm.
Seen her in films since.
On the private promenade.
Which I think they enlarged a little bit, just
They
to sort of
did.
make it a little bit more impressive.
It's a little wider than the real one was.
But I have to say, if you travel that way, you might as well have breakfast out there. It's the best way to go.
Yeah.
I was tired.
Your exertions below decks were no doubt exhausting.
We haven't mentioned the china, which,
I see you.
by and large, is a very faithful reproduction of actual Stonier's china that was made for the White Star Line at that time in the dining saloon. There were some good close-ups of it.
Well, and the silverware too. And what amazed me was that even if you went to the far corner of the dining room, they had the same china and silver as what was on camera in the foreground.
Yeah.
Of course, there goes some of the china now.
Yeah. Ouch.
So you will honor me. You will honor me the way a wife is required to honor her husband. Because I will not let her fool those.
And it's so interesting when you think about how, the very wealthy, they ignore the servants. The servants witness these kind of things, but it doesn't matter because, they're just not of your class, so to speak. And so, here Trudy in the background is just sort of witnessing it all, and he doesn't care if she hears or not.
Yeah, certainly was a different time. And what was really fascinating is how we learned to recognize the different classes ourselves just from the fashions. And there developed a hierarchy among the extras on who you could talk to and who you couldn't, and who you treated with more respect and who you didn't. It was really bizarre. The first class passengers, according to what some of the extras said, you actually almost started to feel a little bit of a separation.
Yeah, because when you were on deck, like when you're on the set, you're hanging around with the other extras from your class. If they're filming a first-class scene, it's all first-class extras, that sort of thing. So, on or off the set, you end up spending so much time with just people from your class. Those are the scenes they're filming today, and so third class don't have to show up or whatever. And so, yeah, there was sort of a hierarchy.
You know the money's gone. Of course I know it's gone. You remind me every day.
This is
Your father.
another good sequence here between the two.
Yeah, there's such a tension that Kate Winslet's Rose character has to go through where, what she really wants to do, and then faced with her mother telling her these things, which for all she knows will always be true, and having to struggle with all that.
Why are you being so selfish?
I'm being selfish.
This room, by the way, is based on an actual Titanic bedroom. We have a photograph of B-59. It's the Old Dutch decor. The style is called Old Dutch. And it was pretty faithfully reproduced here for this particular set.
And the corset, she's wearing, of course, so many women wore corsets at that time. And a lot of the extras said that, of course, they were a little painful at first, but then they realized the ladies ended up having less back pain than the men because there was a lot of sitting around that you'd have to do. And the women found that it sort of supported them. And so they really suffered less, I think, than a lot of the men did because they got to wear the corsets.
Choices are never easy.
And also it sort of makes it easier because, a proper Edwardian never used the back of a chair. And for the ladies, it was easy because you can't lean back if you're wearing a corset anyway.
Yeah. Again, the stuff that you learn.
Yeah.
By actually going through it and walking the walk and getting dressed in the same clothes, it forced their posture to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And
that's what they really were going for, was to make sure the women wore the corsets so that they would have that same stance and so that the clothing would hang the way it did off of women in 1912.
Now, the hymn sing on Sunday morning in the first class dining saloon, first and second class only?
No, not even second class. Each class had their own hymn sing. There are a lot of people under the mistaken impression that there was one service for all classes. And that just isn't true. First and second class each had their own service in their own dining rooms. And then third class, a priest and a minister from second class went down into third and held services down there for them.
Hello, Jack.
No, you never cross classes, even on Sundays.
Yeah.
It's a great wide shot at the staircase.
Oh, yeah.
Sir.
I just need to see
Sir,
somebody for a
you're not
second.
supposed to be...
I'm just all about the sets and the props and so
Oh,
forth. It's just
absolutely.
absolutely my... And in fact, I had to see the film so many times before I absorbed enough of the dialogue to really get it, a lot of it, because I was so stuck on watching the Titanic as it was recreated.
Well, every door, every light fixture, they're all there.
Yeah. And a lot of it, well, a fair amount of it is preserved today at Fox Studios Baja. Their park called Foxploration, which is a great place to visit and to see nooks and crannies of some of these sets actually re-erected as they were filmed for the movie.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great visit, and especially for us who worked on it, because it evokes so much of the sets that we witnessed and saw and experienced. And it's a hymn that actually was sung in second class that day.
Excuse me, sir. Another ice warning. This one's from the Norden.
Thank you, Sparks.
And even the bridge. I mean, just everything. This is sort of our first real shot of the bridge. And the bridge wings, everything. I mean, just...
Windows to the wheelhouse on the right.
Oh, everything just perfectly in place. Of course, this scene has, a special favorite for me because, I play the father of this little boy spinning the top. And this is great because it's based upon a photograph that was taken on board the Titanic of Frederick Spedden watching his son spinning a top with an older gentleman, watching. And so that was recreated by Jim and then worked into it and becomes a part of the storyline.
You did a good job.
Thank you very much. It was an all-day job. That one scene, for the few seconds that took, we were there the better part of the day filming that, just, from every angle and rehearsing and everything. I think Leo was so tired of climbing over that railing by the end. I think there were a couple of guys down there sort of pushing him over it by the end of the day.
Wow.
Take an extra row of bolts inside this one. But it was thought by some that the deck would look too cluttered.
Thomas Andrews is, again, Victor Garber is very well cast. He really has that look, and he does the accent so well.
I agree. He looks like Andrews. Face is a little bit broad, maybe, but aside from that, it really, really works. These shots looking down the deck, I just love them. There's
absolutely.
All the boats and the...
It's where there isn't special effects, where you actually are looking down the length of the deck.
The snubbing chains, the davit bits, everything, the chocks, everything all there, just the way it was.
Jack.
Here we are in the ship's gymnasium.
Yeah, which is still there down there at the bottom of the ocean today.
Although the roof recently fell in. It was intact. It was still standing up until a few years ago. But it had never actually been explored inside before the roof fell in. So now that's been lost. Lost our chance to explore inside. But you can just get glimpses in the background of some of the detail that went into the gymnasium. It was a phenomenal set. And I believe more scenes were filmed in here that were cut.
And what a great thing to have on board, because, of course, today on board ships we have gymnasiums and swimming pools and things like that. And the Titanic and her sister ships are really among the first to have it. I mean, the gymnasium, swimming pool, Turkish baths, to have the whole spa thing. I mean, it really was way, way ahead of its time. And you had a lot more things for people to do when you were traveling on board the Titanic than if you were on another ocean liner.
Well, I'm fine.
There was a Turkish bath set that was to be built. It was slated originally. I remember little mock-up models being built of a Turkish bath set, and that was dropped early on. Didn't get built.
The movie would have taken place in every public room if they could have had our way. We would have loved everything recreated.
But this gymnasium set was finished out to the nth degree, and it is kind of a shame that so much was cut, and we don't see the mechanical horses in the background, and the weight machine and the mechanical bicycles, the rowing machine. It's all in there. It's just beautifully copied.
I remember Eileen Schaefer, one of the cross-channel passengers, told us how the instructor was so good with the children and he loved to show off the equipment and everything, but said he was rather stern with the adults, but the children he just sort of favored. She just remembered him as being a very nice man.
A first-class lounge up on A deck looking forward.
And this is all animated. It's a miniature, I believe.
Well, yeah, it is.
We're only seeing them in the foreground, and it's a miniature that it's all been dubbed into.
Yes.
And this is a wonderful scene because Kate, of course, looks over and she sees this little girl being groomed to be what she was groomed to be. And she realizes this little girl is heading her way. And in my mind, of course, the little girl is Lorraine Allison, who was a small child about that age on the Titanic who ended up being one of the victims. The small child is being turned into what Kate's being doomed to. And the sunset on this day, it was a natural sunset. And of course, when they did some of these scenes on a soundstage, they had to duplicate the sky in the background because that, for the most part, is a genuine sunset off the coast of Mexico that night.
Yeah, I believe this whole set that you see behind her had to be built because of this scene here.
They said you might be up here.
Yeah, they had to be able to do it from different angles.
They got this great shot, like right now, this is the real sunlight. This right here is on a soundstage. But they keep going back and forth between what was really happening on the real set. And because that worked so well, this lucky, incredible sunset that occurred, to get some of the other angles, they went in, I think, stage 3 it was down there, and built this fake bridge front and so forth in the background at, I don't know, like half scale or 1/3 scale, just as a mock-up. This here, for example, is the real set. Stage 1, as it was called.
Outdoors on the lot. Yeah.
I wasn't there that day, but I understand it was this very sudden, oh my God, look at the sun. It's going to be gorgeous. Get the actors. And they all just quickly got it pulled together and shot this.
Well, I was there, and I remember they were already out there when it just sort of happened. And I remember just thinking, how does Jim Cameron do that? And it was this incredible sunset that just occurred when they were out there that day, just filming this one scene. It just worked out so beautiful.
Oh, that's good to know. So they were planning to shoot this scene that day.
I believe so. I believe the sunset just happened as they were preparing to shoot. It just came along.
See, I learned stuff all the time, all these years later.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And as we said earlier, I don't think it's totally inconceivable for the woman occupying the most expensive room on the Titanic to be allowed on the very bow of the bridge in calm weather.
Yeah.
Or the bow of the ship in calm weather.
I wanted Jim to just put a brief little, because I quibbled with this too. The officers up on the bridge would say, we've got first-class passengers out there that are going to fall off and we're going to get sued. And I said, can't you just have have somebody coming up to Smith and saying, would you like me to get them off, sir? And Smith can say, no, let them be. And that's all you need, just 5 seconds. And Jim didn't want to do that. He just left it like this, and it works just fine. But sure enough, there's been plenty of complaints, online chat rooms and so forth, about this whole scene being completely impossible because people would never be allowed up there.
But think how disruptive that break in the scene would have been, because this is so tender and it's so wonderful, and it would have been a jump to the bridge. It wouldn't have to be
right at that moment. It could have been at some point, where I know what you mean during this scene. But he could have said it first with the Fabrizio thing in the beginning, when Jack and Fabrizio are up there.
Every so often you forget that this is all done in flashback, and then so they do this transition and they bring you back to the present day. And then where they sort of rehash what you've been seeing and sort of remind you, because, there's so much to this movie. You tend to forget little things here and there. And now they're reminding you, of course, about the conversation with Smith and everything, and, about the ice up ahead. And of course, Rose doesn't care about that now. She's more caught up in her memories and, the items she has.
I think the whole thing here is so brilliantly woven together. I mean, truthfully, I'm not
sure,
to keep pandering to the director, Jim, but I mean, just truthfully, very, very sensibly put together. It's the fastest 3 hours I've ever spent in my life when I saw this movie.
Fastest 3 hours I've ever spent over and over again.
Here we are in that lavish Regency suite again, mahogany and gilded details.
And all the flowers in the rooms, which, one of the passengers had said that there were just flowers everywhere, as she recalled. And you can certainly believe that.
I know, it's extraordinary.
And really, the accommodations, if you could afford a suite on the Titanic, and of course, a huge amount of money for the time, but, to have as much space as they had, I think it really was the largest suite of any ocean liner at sea at that time.
This particular room that they're in now is is copied off a Titanic room, again, a bedroom, a Louis XVI room, B58, I believe.
And it's something they don't do at sea anymore, is you rarely see a ship where they would do a different style in each stateroom. They're all pretty much cookie cutter in some ways, and certainly not based on historic rooms of any kind. And this is the scene, of course, where she takes the comb out of her hair that we've seen earlier.
There's the hearth that plays so much. Such a strong image throughout the film in the
The last
background.
thing I need is another picture of me looking like a porcelain doll. As a paying customer, I expect to get what I want.
I imagine there weren't too many spectators on the scene this day, probably for the filming of this scene. Supposedly Leo is, an honest mistake. He accidentally falters when he tells her to get on the sofa.
Really? That's not acted?
No, that he actually...
Get on the bed, sofa?
Yeah, exactly. I've always heard that was an honest mistake on his part. And of course it works so well it got left in.
Come, lie down. Yeah.
Tell me when
keep
it
that.
looks right.
Put your arm back the way it was. Put that other arm up.
It's such an incredibly daring thing for a woman from that time to do.
Oh, boy.
No, certainly not unheard of, but...
I can't even imagine it. With Cal wandering around the ship, he could walk in at any time. It's
a wonderful scene of the two of them, but there's that tension, you're right, behind it, that they're going to get caught. The first time you see it, you just, of course, from seeing the movie so far, that he's going to finish the sketch, but you still have it in the back of your head that something could happen, that, Cal could still walk in, whatever.
Yeah. Now, although these are the hands of Jim Cameron, there's yet another cheat here. You know what that is, Don?
No, tell me. Sorry.
Jim happens to be left-handed.
Oh.
Yeah. He's a lefty.
Well, all the best people are.
So how in the heck did they do this then? Especially the master sketch like this one. If he's left-handed, that means he had to draw the sketch.
Well, but you only see him
reversed.
Just doing a little bit at a time. So, of course, he's only just shading a little here and there with his right hand.
Yeah.
So it works.
Well, possibly. Yeah. Maybe they didn't flop the footage, but he'd have to fake it with his hand that he's not used to drawing with, which would be an interesting and difficult thing to do.
See, we should have asked.
Being an artist myself, that would be really tough to switch hands and try to. I just always figured they flopped the film, that he drew these sketches backwards.
Both ways, perhaps. And the music here is just, it's so subtle.
Yeah. It's an amazing variety of music, scoring to this film that you aren't aware of through half the movie. It just suits the mood and you flow with it.
Oh, absolutely.
But later when you hear the music, there's such variety and so much of it.
This is wonderful to dissolve. And of course, they had to, I think, blew up Gloria Stewart's eyes a little bit because older person's eyes have lost their luster. And so they had to really dub it in. And everybody just staring captivated as she's talking.
And at least.
So what happened next?
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
You mean, did we do it?
Did we do it?
Sorry.
So many familiar faces in the background there.
Oh, yeah.
Jack was very
There are so many people who had cameos, in some way or another throughout the film, either,
Except
in the
me.
1912 period or the present day. Well, your artwork had a cameo.
Yeah, that's true, sort of.
Thank you.
And then the painting over the fireplace. I was asked, if I wanted to act in the movie, a little bit part, but I couldn't take the time at the time to go down to the set and wait around a week for the filming of a scene.
Well, and supposedly they had an idea that you and I would be in the smoking room scene, just, playing cards or something in the background, just the two of us at a table. They figured, the authors, whatever.
If I knew exactly what day it was going to be shot, I could come down and do that. But I was in the middle of a book project at the time, and I just couldn't. They said, we're not exactly sure what day we might actually use you, so you kind of have to come and sit around for 5 days or a week. Do you have that kind of time? And there wasn't a chance, so I missed out.
Yeah, because they don't know. They always had a shooting schedule day by day, but the reality is, if it's great weather, you're going to do outdoor scenes. And the indoor scenes were bad weather days. And so you couldn't really say, well, yes, we're going to film this on this day, because everything was contingent on the weather.
Yeah.
Leon. Yes.
I think Jim really portrayed Lightoller very well, and I hate to disparage him, but when you look at all the other movies about the Titanic and the books and things, Lightoller is always made out to be the greatest hero of them all and, flawless in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is most of what we know that Lightoller did is based upon Lightoller's own description.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he was very much the company man.
He really was. And so I think Jim portrayed him much more human here, and I think a much more believable Lightoller. And I think probably throughout the course of the sinking, the way he really did react and behave. I love this where they comment on the cold, because that was one thing on Sunday night. It suddenly got colder, and everyone noticed it.
It's getting cold. You look nice. My drawings.
This is the kind of contiguous set design that was accomplished here, that you could walk from one themed room into the Louis XVI room, into the old Dutch room, where we are now, and then out into a first-class corridor. It was all there, and it was built that way. There wasn't a lot of cutting that had to be done, unless it was by choice.
Oh, and then, of course, the whole thing is just in a huge tank on a soundstage, and all those decks and all those rooms can just be sunk into the water. I mean, it was an incredible engineering feat to build the sets, not just to make them look right, but also just to make them mobile so that they could be flooded.
Yeah. This staircase set and elevator set that you see here was all built, along with the reception room set, the dining saloon. It was all one solid thing that sank in this tank at any determined angle that you wanted it to go at, and at various rates of speed.
And of course, if anybody's ever smelled wet carpet, they'll know what the smell was like afterwards.
Yes, after, yeah.
That squishy noise when you walk across the rooms, yeah.
Yeah.
They call this the labyrinth. This maze of third-class corridors, these whole sets.
It's nice to get some real shippy sounds in here now.
Yes.
Sounds of whining generators and motors.
Yeah, the natural sounds of, a ship at sea.
Do it down here. Down here.
Not exactly a likely scenario, but poetic nonetheless.
Yeah.
Don't mind us. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
I mean, imagine the shock of these men, seeing a lady come running through there, especially a first-class lady.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the famous Renault, famous for having gone down with the Titanic. And that's another thing is, we know there was a Renault automobile, a 1912 Renault on board, and here it is.
Just by
William Carter.
Passenger William Carter.
Billy
Carter.
And the thing was, he, traveling with his, wife, 2 children, a couple of servants, and so chances are it was a fairly good-sized automobile.
We know the horsepower of it, and I believe the color was red, based upon Walter Lord's memory, because when I corresponded with him from his early discussions with Carter family members or whoever it was that he spoke to, his memory was that they had told him it was a red car. So, but there's very little that we know about it other than the fact that it was a certain horsepower and supposedly red.
The cargo manifest just says, one case automobile. And case doesn't necessarily mean it was packed in a crate, because, of course, you didn't ship cars inside crates. That's probably just a unit, a measurement unit for shipping, is to say a case.
Yeah, there have been those that have argued, the car would never be in one piece. They would have dismantled it, and it would be in different crates, and all this. And that's just not the case.
Photographs
shipped intact.
Yeah, they always were back then. You always see those famous photographs of them hoisting a car aloft on a pallet, onto a ship.
Lowered down through the hatch number 2 to the orlop deck. That's where they are now. And this wide God's eye view looking down on the lonely North Atlantic.
Exactly how tiny and alone the Titanic is in the vast North Atlantic.
Yeah.
Bloody cool. I can smell us, Well, it's there.
Bollocks.
Bollocks.
Yeah.
you ever find those binoculars for the lookouts?
Haven't seen them since Southampton.
Well, the build up to the collision with the iceberg. So Murdoch is now on watch.
The ambient dim light that you see in the background there is given off by something called night suns. They're like what, arc lights inside these large helium balloons.
Oh yes, yeah.
Nylon balloons that give a diffuse light, and they were always having to move those around the set to give an even light to wherever they were filming. There's sort of an ambient overhead sort of moonlight effect, which did not exist that night. But if they filmed it strictly accurately with no moonlight, the bridge was a completely dark, black place at night.
Well, so you could see out ahead.
Yeah, they didn't want their night vision to be impaired by any lights up forward of the bridge or reflecting from back aft. So it was a very, very, very dark place. You simply can't film in that.
What is the likelihood that there's a light on in the cargo hold?
Yeah.
So, it's a little license taken here as well. I think Kate said afterwards they kind of put some glycerin on them to make them look a little sweaty, and then, lint kept sticking to her automatically if it fell on her.
Yeah.
These huge old battery-powered flashlights.
Anything missing?
Cal has found something.
Yeah.
Whoops.
A key prop.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the White Star logo on the letterhead.
Yeah.
They got the logo right.
And they've got onboard RMS Titanic on the right.
I've got a better idea.
Stewards who think they're onto something.
Good shot.
Meanwhile, back out in the frigid cold.
Those guys' face.
I was just amazed at how many of the, background characters were really English. And of course, I realized that very often voices are dubbed over. And if they were extras, the voices that were used in the end may not have even been their own.
I'm getting off with you.
It's crazy.
I know.
The movie is so long. I was told that when Leo had to go in and do his dubbing of the voice for so many of these scenes, it was basically 3 months of time to get every scene right.
Gee. There's so many stories to be told about this film. Many of them have been, I'm sure, but...
Oh, and some we can't even tell for polite audiences.
Yeah.
A bit warm in the wheel. Well, that's no place for us to get warm. I'd rather not if it's all the same here.
Can you imagine how frigid and cold it would have been up there with this 28 mile an hour wind in your face?
Oh, freezing. Yes.
The air temperature
was
at freezing.
At freezing,
the water temperature 28 degrees.
Yes, what you see. Iceberg!
This is accurate. These are the exact quotes from the testimony of those who survived. Yes, what did you see? Iceberg right ahead.
Absolutely.
And a polite thank you. He's turning the wheel to the left, which is to the port side, although the command back then was hard to starboard, which the starboard is the right side of the ship. That was the command that was done back then. It's a holdover from the old days of sail.
Yeah, you put the tiller over to the right, and then the ship will turn to the port.
But the guy behind the wheel turned it as he would in a car to the left.
Yes, they got that right.
Although again, there were complaints from people saying, "Oh, that scene's all wrong. They said hard to starboard, and they're turning the other way."
No, we found 1912 books, British books that told about navigation, and they were very specific that was the correct way to turn the wheel. So this is incredible, the stopping of these engines to reverse them. I mean, reversing engines, they're that huge.
These are miniatures that were about the engines were about 3 feet tall. Built again by Digital Domain, I believe. Now, the center propeller, which you can see in the background there, has come to a complete stop. That was the turbine propeller, run off the auxiliary steam. It did not go in reverse. All it could do is go forward or stop. But in the film here, Jim is showing the wing propellers starting to go in reverse, which there is a lot of debate about whether the ship actually went into reverse as opposed to just stopped.
If there was time enough for that to happen. This is one of those.
The iceberg is based on the shape done by a sketch of at least one eyewitness.
Yes. Yeah, one of the passengers who sketched it later who saw it pass by. I think Frederick Fleet, the lookout, even sketched it many years later for the Titanic Historical Society.
Yes. We put all the sketches together that had been done, that were known, and came up with this general shape for the berg. And here it is, scraping along on the starboard side, pushing in plates, stripping off rivets, buckling plates.
Yeah, you'll never see it in the film, of course, but there's a tiny Godzilla embedded in the iceberg.
Oh, really?
You know, the Godzilla, came out of the ice in the old Godzilla movie, and so Digital Domain, they embedded a little Godzilla into the ice.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't show on film. But I love this with the ice just moving along through the cargo areas and just, rupturing the plates.
He just gave the command to hard a port around it.
And just as some of the crewmen in the, stokehold said, it just swept you off your feet when the water poured in.
The reason for the hard a port maneuver was in an attempt to swing the stern clear so that the iceberg wouldn't scrape the entire length of the ship. Boiler room number 6, just catastrophic flooding. And
the one boiler room that just flooded at the time of the collision completely. And all these mechanical gizmos that were so new at the time, such as, watertight doors that could be electrically closed from the bridge.
Thus rendering the ship, quote, practically unsinkable, according to period publicity.
And I rushed to get through, just, get into a dry compartment rather than climb up the ladders and get out. They weren't sealed at the top, the watertight compartments. All they did was seal the sides so that at least you could then climb out through a ladder if you had to.
Yikes.
Well, and that would have taken his legs off if that had closed down.
It has done that in the past on some ships.
Poor Murdoch. Every officer's nightmare.
Just imagine.
And the iceberg wasn't this towering mountain that people always made it out to be. If you were walking along the boat deck, you couldn't see it. But if you were down on A deck where these people are, you could. So it really was only as high as the lifeboats from the water.
Mm-hmm. About 60 feet?
65, I think.
Is that Mr. Murdoch? An iceberg, sir.
Smith was not on the bridge at the time. As Jim shows, he was back in his
cabin
quarters.
Was just close by, and obviously he hadn't completely undressed because he showed up pretty quickly. And he knew they were heading into ice. I mean, there was no doubt about it.
But the thinking back time, ships were run like express trains. They were very competitive. You had your faithful passengers that always sailed with a particular captain, with a particular line. And you did not slow down just because of warnings.
No, the likelihood of hitting an iceberg was so small. I mean, people would sail for years and years and years and never even see one. Just they happened to be further south that season than most places. So, of course, third class being lower down is flooding already.
Excuse me, why have the...
And then here in first class, it's just, well, what's going on? You just stop your steward and ask. And I think this is the last we see of the Countess for the rest of the movie. But, she did survive. Lived a long life.
This is a great pan shot.
Yes. Yes, there really were rats on the Titanic.
I recognize those slippers.
Yeah.
I had to wear that robe and those slippers for Ghosts of the Abyss.
And I got to wear Thomas Andrews' suit. You just hate Billy Zane at this point.
Oh, yeah.
The cowl is so horrible.
You moron. Looking down from first class into the well deck, third class space.
Nobody questions it.
It's just so great. I mean, the actors can walk the steps that were really there on the ship. There's the doorway leading into first class. Forward end of B deck.
Yeah, the cabins behind it. And of course, there weren't really cabins behind those windows. It's just all a big set. So, all of the interiors are on a soundstage. Looking out the door, of course.
I hope you've been having fun.
Wah, wah. That's so crafty to sneak the diamond into his
Something
pocket.
serious has happened.
But so many people see the film and ask me, where did he get the coat? Because they were so focused on, being friends of mine, me, when he steals the coat, that they didn't see him doing that in the background.
Yeah, that's one of the things I didn't pick up for several viewings.
Of an emergency.
We'll have to sneak that little comment out. At the time this was filmed, we threw out the name Ryerson, as one of the passengers. There was certainly, of course, an Arthur Ryerson on board. And we found out later that the man who actually was in that photograph where the coat is taken was Edward Crosby. So, fortunately, we missed that little fact. We've gotten the name right if we'd been a little earlier with it. Now, this is great because Thomas Andrews was able to explain to them and also to the audience about the ship flooding and how long it will take.
I thought that Victor Garber's performance during this whole sequence is superb as well.
Oh, people have loved this line of his where he talks about the ship being made of iron, and so yes, she will sing.
Yeah, and putting on the Irish accent.
Yes.
Minutes only. How does he do that?
A nice, well-to-do Irish accent.
Yeah.
They really captured these.
But the ship can't sink.
She's made of iron, sir. I assure you, she can.
It had to be such a difficult time for both of them, because Smith and Ismay and Andrews are so a part of the history of the ship, from the very idea of it all through the design and the construction and everything. And now they're finding that this thing that they had worked so long for is going to be destroyed, and possibly them too.
Just inconceivable concept.
And of course, Murdoch just burying.
Comes one of my favorite lines in the movie. Because it just says so much.
Well, and it's very prophetic because, of course, the Titanic made headlines for a solid month after this. The audience, of course, knows how really, really important this is.
Captain's orders.
I think Cal and Rose thought they'd had a pretty busy evening up to this point.
Yeah.
It really captures the difference between first and third class.
Yeah.
Where third class, you just were pounding on doors and telling people to get out of their rooms.
Then the announcement was a little less subtle.
Yeah, exactly. And first class, it's just they help you with your life jacket, everything.
In the wireless room up on boat deck, the Marconi.
Yes. Such a shock for everybody when they hear these things, because of course the Titanic is still very solid and very much afloat. If you've ever walked on the decks of a major ocean liner, you can't conceive that it could sink. It just seems so big, so solid. And it's like the Queen Mary and, of course, the new Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth II.
The engines being stopped, the boilers with all this excess steam, this excess steam has to be vented off, and that's what's happening here. Up the waste pipes on the funnels made a deafening noise.
Yeah, all this activity on the boat deck. remember Edwina Mackenzie saying that the second she saw them uncovering a lifeboat, just all faith in the unsinkability of the Titanic disappeared for her.
Hmm.
And what ship today, if it was in an accident, would the orchestra play for the passengers? You know, it's just such a product of the era, I think.
So much confusion and different stories that were being passed around in the beginning after the ship had the accident. It was long before the days of any public address systems. So
oh, yes. And no
it was
speakers.
Just word of mouth, and some stewards told passengers, just, you can go to bed. We've just maybe dropped a propeller blade, nothing to worry about.
Stewards who fully believed that, they just hadn't heard otherwise, and of course perfectly believed in the unsinkability of the ship.
It was generally felt that shipbuilding had gone beyond that. That's a quote from Captain Smith himself a few years before. The ship would be unsinkable.
Yeah, the slightness of the accident, of course, just convinced people that there was nothing wrong. It really was very misleading, obviously. Thomas Andrews was so good about seeing that people got out of their cabins and was, after the stewards and stewardesses to make sure people had their life jackets and everything. And he really was a hero that night. At the same time, didn't want panic. Thank heavens Lovejoy is there to help. I love the chair at the desk. It's one of the swivel chairs, what they call it, I think a captain's chair, that's supposed to be mounted to the floor. And so, of course, you wouldn't find it in a master-at-arms office. It's something for third class around the dining table.
Assistant wireless operator Harold Bride delivering that message.
Yeah. They're both a little shocked. Smith by how long it'll take it, and Bride by how little time they suddenly have.
Gosh, I love these pullback shots where you actually see the expanse of that set. All the extras up there.
And it's incredible with these lifeboats, people don't realize they're just lowered by hand. You just feed ropes out and lower them that way. And yet they were the latest thing with the davits that would crank out.
Today, you look back on those things, they just seem the most harebrained, contraptions.
Oh, just haphazard.
And as we'll see coming up, the davits really flexed a lot. Even on the set. And the davits, although they were built by the very same company that built the original davits, the Welland Company, they were built more fortified. They're a little wider, you can see there, than the archival photographs of the actual davits on Olympic and Titanic. And despite them being extra fortified over what they really were in 1912, they still flexed to the point where it just seemed like they were going to tear out of the deck. And that was only supporting the weight of fiberglass boats. I mean, these boats are smaller, actually, because of the truncated length of the ship, and they're lighter than the real lifeboats were. And yet those davits flexed so much that Jim really was worried that the davits were just going to break or tear out of the deck.
Well, and that's when you think about it, I mean, that could be one of the reasons, of course, why the lifeboats weren't filled to capacity, because as they were lowering them, they were bending the davits. They were probably afraid to.
If these davits on the set were flexing, which you'll see coming up so much, you can imagine how much the real ones must have vibrated. And it's amazing to me that there aren't eyewitness reports surviving to this day of survivors saying, oh my gosh, the way those davits flexed.
Exactly.
We'll see it shortly, I'm sure. But they were lowered, as Don says, by hand like this, and they were raised back up. If you were testing the lifeboats, they were raised back up out of the water using electric winches that were mounted in 4 different spots up on the boat deck.
What panic. I always admired.
There they go. You can see them tweaking a little bit back and forth. Yeah.
I always admired the people who got into those first boats, especially the very first boat. The bravery on their part, the adventurous spirit they must have had.
Yes, because the ship seemed as solid as the Rock of Gibraltar. It was warm inside, freezing outside, and the ship is unsinkable.
And a huge drop to the water from the top deck.
Yeah. It's got to be unsinkable. That's what everybody thinks. It's going to sink so far, and then it's going to stabilize. It can't keep going. So why are you putting us off in lifeboats? It was felt by many originally that it was just the over-officiousness of the White Star crew. We want to put you out in lifeboats so that we look good, and we'll row you back in the morning after we've patched up the damage. And
when people would believe it, that if you put a bunch of people in a lifeboat, it would lessen the weight on the ship or something. And, people they were landlubbers. They didn't know better. They got on the boats and off they went.
If you could talk them into getting into them.
Yeah.
Why so many of the boats left half full or even a third full. Less than that sometimes.
Well, and also in 1912, the prevailing thought was when a ship sinks, you die. Edwina Mackenzie told us that as well, where when a ship goes down, everybody dies. The idea of a major sea rescue was really unheard of at that time because wireless was so new. Ships that were sinking didn't have the ability to call other ships by wireless the way they did by 1912. And so there's a prevailing feeling that, the ship was going to go down and, you might die. This is so great where, her mother goes from wanting to be segregated by class to suddenly realizing that their lives are really in peril. This is Lifeboat 6, which is famous for having Molly Brown on board. And I love the way the realization strikes her when the light goes on from the rocket. Mm-hmm. Something the old, cliche about the light bulb going on. And I love the way the panic rises in Francis Fisher's voice.
There's another spitting scene.
Yes. Well, and that's what made the first one so effective, is that she was able to use that data later. And the sad thing is, of course, that this happened, in a number of times where a family would be separated and a lifeboat would leave when, their family members were still on deck. Such wonderful scenes with the water just gradually filling.
That was the purpose of building this one huge, solid set.
It could just be lowered down into this tank.
This is not the exterior set of the ship, but the interior set, which also included a little corner of the boat deck outside the first class entrance where the band played and so forth. Inside stage 2, maybe it was.
Such great instructions. So how could you possibly remember all this?
Yeah. The stress of the situation, and I'd be saying now, can I write this down? Wait a minute. Boy.
Oh, shit!
And this is one of the times where you want to chew your arm off just to get out of there.
Yellow nightmare. Yeah, exactly.
Lifts are closed. I'm sorry, miss, but the lifts are closed.
I'm through being polite. God. Now,
Society of no.
Yeah.
Not allowed, not allowed, not allowed.
And I just love it when they get down to the bottom. That line, I'm going back up, I'm going back up.
Come on, you can do it.
And of course, the water they're pumping into these sets is real ocean water. And, it is absolutely freezing. It's be a very natural scream when she suddenly screams when the water hits her legs.
I don't think it was that cold. It was like 50, wasn't it, or something? 48.
I think that's cold.
Oh, it is.
I'd lose my breath.
Yeah.
I love the way the water just pours out of the elevator when it goes back
She
up.
definitely commented afterwards about the shock of that cold water.
Yes, the first time she got into it, up to her neck. You know, you think about it too, is, of course, there had to be debris floating around the corridors and things. And a lot of the steerage passengers, when they first had their rooms in the bow starting to flood, would take all their luggage and start heading aft with it. And so probably a lot of it was abandoned here and there throughout the ship. And the crewmen who had their quarters in the bow did the same thing. The firemen's quarters were all throughout the very forepeak. And they would pack up their things and try to take them to a higher deck and then have to abandon them later.
There's just an incredible amount of debris when a ship sinks. Everything imaginable, little slips of paper.
Oh, anything and everything.
All the way up to huge chunks of wood. And
the things that they found after the Titanic went down floating on the ocean. Anything and everything.
Again, it's this replaying of exactly what would have happened, this natural stuff that just starts floating around through the corridors, just out of the staterooms and out of the various areas, just the way it really would have been. And that's another interesting thing about Jim. I remember him doing that exact same thing. He would see things happening like that, and he would say, "No, leave it. That's the way it would do it."
Keep looking. Oh.
This is a miniature of the forecastle, which I believe was about 10 feet across. Maybe it was about
There's no key. All right, Rose, listen.
1/8 scale.
And it's such a great shot, seeing the bow just dipping under, and that it'll never be above water again.
Yes, that familiar, iconic prow with the railing.
I'll just wait here.
Got to be drowned like a rat in a cage.
Cute little lines that, you probably would really say. I mean, people really talk like that at times, make little jokes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Hello, is there anyone here? Hello? Is there anybody?
It was indeed a labyrinth.
Oh, yes.
Damn it.
Again, it was different from other sets I've been on, which had these wild walls and removable areas where the cameras would go, and you always knew you were on a set. But with this set, you could get lost in it. It was completely finished, top to bottom, pipes overhead.
Oh, absolutely.
Corridor, passageway leading to corridor.
Yeah, and doors that sometimes led places, other times didn't. And solid walls. This is so great. The idea that, if the lights go out, what do you do? The panic that would set in.
Yeah. I like the hearing the sound of the voice, the quickening breath, and not the voice, but the sound of the breathing.
Yes.
Just what would happen. I mean, you just start hyperventilating.
I need your help.
This way, quickly.
There is a man down here and he is trapped.
This way, yes, all right.
Please.
There's no need to panic.
I'm not panicking.
Oh. Some of these characters are just so memorable. They have one brief scene, and they're just perfect for it.
The hell with you.
That kind of paneling that you see her leaning her head up against, the white enamel painted the walls. It's called rail and style. And it was just ubiquitous throughout the entire ship. Corridors, staterooms, except for the fanciest of the first-class suites. There goes the forward well deck.
Enamel paint was so sanitary. It was something you'd advertise at the time.
Yes, everything was about sanitation, cleanliness. Back into that icy water.
I mean, just, the thought of being in the middle of a sinking ship, that far down.
Being in the middle of a sinking set, too.
That's true.
I don't know how she did it. That set, what if things went wrong? What if the cables snapped, that were the hydraulic cables that were holding up or winches, whatever it was that was, controlling that set, lowering into the water and rising back out for another take and so forth. What if something went awry and that thing just sank of its own accord? You'd be trapped in there. That would constantly be on my mind if I were an actor trying to do this. Just get me done with this scene. I want to get out of here.
Do it and get out. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
The old rubber axe. Really?
The master at arms, he's basically the ship's policeman, and there were two of them on the Titanic, and both survived. And one of them, it was his very first commercial voyage. He was an ex-Navy man, and he'd never been to sea with a merchant ship before, and this was his first time, and his last time apparently too. That after that, he decided, he'd had enough.
Yeah.
Until the war anyway, but he never worked as on a passenger ship after that.
Mm-hmm.
Lines up a little more. Like that? Right. Listen, Rose. I trust you. Go!
This is true love.
I didn't expect this. I thought there'd be more than one swing. I have to admit.
Yeah.
Breaking in on the first try, I was just somehow surprised. It's not usually done that way in movies.
I love the flickering lights, as things are shorting out or whatever. And it's still calm outside. Of course, the ship is going down, but it's calm.
Unreal.
I have to admit, it was heartbreaking to see them, angle the set down for these scenes, because that meant that our period of enjoying the ship as it looked when it was new was over.
Was waning, coming to an end. Yeah.
Because they're now moving on to the destruction part of the movie.
Look at that.
Just so great. It's so alone out there.
Oh, that's the whole point. Yeah, just this isolation. Just till the day I die, I'll never get out of my mind the vision of standing to the side there and watching some of these scenes being filmed from down below.
Oh, yeah.
The set was so stately. I mean, we all called it the ship. We didn't call it the set. It was the ship. I'm going on the ship. I'm getting off the ship, whatever.
Lovejoy. She's not on the starboard side either.
And just the prowling around, so much time spent just exploring the set over and over again, the same areas. And, climbing up into the crow's nest, climbing to the top of the funnel.
Mm-hmm. The crow's nest was accessible by a ladder inside, just the way the real crow's nest was. And you'd think that actors would be hoisted up there by cherry pickers or something, but no.
You'll have to pay for that, That's White Star Line property.
And this line is based on an actual line spoken when someone had to break a door down to get someone out. And a crewman was telling the person, that you reported to the White Star Line for that.
Mm-hmm. Not now, Mr. Andrews. There, look.
I love this.
In a boat built for 65.
Tell the audience that the boats aren't being filled properly.
We weren't sure of the weight.
Lightoller is just so close to panicky himself, which I believe is probably more like as he really behaved. He wasn't perfectly calm the whole time. All the breath is animated. Where down in Mexico, it's not warm enough to see your breath, and it's all just done.
Not cold enough, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
The nights got cold and damp sometimes and misty, but gosh, this was one night that we were there watching. I remember.
Yes.
And, they filmed that scene several times with them closing that door. Jim said, "You're not. It's just made out of plywood. You got to make it look like you're closing a door that weighs 1,000 pounds." So they did it several times, trying to swing that door closed, making it look like it was heavier.
That's just is frightening to watch. Just the idea that people would be beating back passengers with a handle of an axe or whatever.
Now, what's your thought on the gates and the holding back?
Well, some of the gates were locked. I mean, they were supposed to be locked to always keep the passengers segregated. And when the word came to pass the women and children to the boats, some of the crew took it so seriously that they really kept the men locked back. But in a lot of cases, third class really felt that it was their place. And we saw the scene earlier where the mother tells the children that, we'll wait until they've taken care of the others. And there's a sort of respect for the upper classes that you paid for third class, you get treated for third class.
Yeah.
In other places, the gates were wide open and the third class were free to go up to the boat deck if they could, if they could find their way up there.
I make my own luck. So do I.
Certainly, if you were in first class, I think you had a better chance of surviving as a first class man than a third class child.
Yes. It was an incredibly different world back then. I mean, the same in so many ways and so different in other ways. It's...
All get sorted out back there. Go back to the main stairwell. Open the gate. Go back down the main stair. Open the gate right now. Go back down the main stairwell like I told you. God!
So great where they take the situation in their own hands.
Yeah.
Although I think we see
it's designed
plywood floor when plywood really wasn't used at that time.
Yeah. This is designed to be a cathartic moment with, just one too many no's.
Yes.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And so they're taking matters into their own hands.
If you really persevere, you will prevail.
You can't go up there. You can't go there.
In one punch, just for the
and these
for the heck of it.
Beautiful long shots, looking all the length of the set. Just incredible aerial views.
The set being only finished out as far as the hull is concerned on one side.
Yeah,
so
it's just a prop. When you go around to the back, it's all scaffolding.
Yeah. So sometimes when you see the other side of the ship that's sinking with the bow going down the other way, that's a flopped photography.
Yeah, this is great with Lightoller finally sort of losing it. It's so funny because he admitted to Colonel Gracie on the Carpathia that he'd, used his gun. I think he claimed in his memoirs he had an unloaded revolver, and of course at the official inquiries he claimed he didn't have a gun at all.
Well, shots were definitely fired that night.
Oh, yeah.
Too late. There are more boats down the front. Stay with this one, Murdoch. He seems to be quite practical.
This is great with Lifeboat 13 underneath 15, almost being crushed.
Yeah.
And the extras in the boat, when they started screaming to stop lowering the boat above, they were so convincing that, the people lowering the boat actually stopped lowering it. They weren't supposed to, of course. They were supposed to keep on lowering it.
Yeah.
It's starting to fall apart. We don't have much time.
That was one night that we were there watching from a barge floating in the tank there, watching that boat come down on the other one, and it was just really, really terrifying. It was so realistic. This is one of the flopped scenes here where we're looking at the port side of the ship, which really was the starboard.
Colonel, are there any boats on that side?
No, miss, but there are a couple of boats all the way forward. This way, I'll lead you.
Oh, that way he says he'll lead them, and then off they go.
Yeah. What's the use? Nobody's listening to us.
What's the use? Nobody's listening to us anyway.
Well, they don't listen to us at dinner either. Come on, let's play.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Orpheus.
We're unconscious background.
The band, played so well together. They came from different ships, and again, one passenger said you could just ask any song and they knew it. Whether it was in the White Star Songbook or not, you could just make a request and they'd always know exactly what the song you were talking about.
We have an understanding then, Mr. Murdoch.
And this, of course, has been a real issue over the years since the movie came out about, Murdoch, in theory, accepting a bribe, even though he doesn't actually respond, but he doesn't get the money back either. Apparently,
it's very much open to interpretation.
It is, and it's been very upsetting, of course, to the Murdoch family and to the people in Dalby, but the town he came from. So Jim knows that I disagree with this, but it's certainly within his right to put it in his movie.
I found her on the other side, waiting for a boat.
Any more women and children?
All aboard, Mr. Murdoch.
Anyone else, then?
Hop on, sir. Hop on.
Anyone else?
Do hurry. Hurry along.
Of course, Murdoch is allowing men in if the women are already on board.
Oh, God, what the hell?
And there goes Cal's chance.
Fire! Sir! Sir, you can't come through yet! Sir, you can't come through!
There were 8 distress rockets fired that night. First one at, gosh, it's been a while.
Oh, I think around, 12:40 or something like that.
12:45 or so, and about every 8 minutes or 10 minutes.
Don't really know. I can't recall. But pretty much throughout, until this, I think this lifeboat was when the last one was fired. Because the guy firing them was sent away in this boat.
Ismay, there getting into the collapsible sea. He claimed that there were no more women or children visible on the deck at all. It appeared to be deserted. And so he thought, why should one more life be lost? I might as well get in. I need to testify. I'm the president of the White Star Line. I have a duty to save myself. And, of course, the public did not view it that way.
No, of course not.
Be a good little girl.
I'm not going without you.
No, you have to go. Now.
No, Jack.
Get in the boat, Ange.
No, Jack.
Yes. Get on
And so many of these scenes I know are so emotional for so many viewers, because I've had people tell me how, they get all choked up, of course, when they see the little girls having to leave their father behind and everything. And it really captures it so well what it had to go through, because you think about it, and just, an hour and a half earlier, these people are all asleep in bed and, perfectly safe. And now suddenly they're facing the loss of their loved ones and having to say goodbye to them forever.
I'll be all right. Listen, I'll be fine. I'm a survivor, all right?
All in the space of 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I have an arrangement with an officer on the other side of the ship. Jack and I can get off safely. Both of us.
See? Got my own boat to catch.
Go. Hurry. You're almost full. Step aboard, miss.
It's fun to see them all lying to each other like this.
Step aboard, please.
Daddy's a good girl, all right?
Step lively.
You're my little savior.
Turn around, please.
This is such an interesting thing, because people were posing the question, in newspapers and such. It's like, to women, if you were in this position, would you get out of the boat? And of course, I think most women under the age of 25 said yes, they would, whereas, women above that said no, they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You're a good liar.
Run away.
Almost as good as you.
Easy now.
Collapsible D. Did we mention what the collapsibles were? And
no,
there were 4 extra collapsible boats on Titanic.
Oh, there is.
And 2 of them were stowed on top of the officers' quarters on either side of the forward funnel. And the other 2 were down on the boat deck beneath the emergency boats 1 and 2. Together with these 4 collapsible boats, Titanic had 20 lifeboats, which was actually more than was required by the law at that time.
Yeah, just not enough.
Just not enough. With all lifeboat capacity, all lifeboats filled to capacity, it still only saved 1,178 people, or could have saved that many, which was, only half of the number of people actually carried on that trip.
And collapsible boats, they're basically just rafts with sides that collapse down so that they can be stored on deck more easily. But, they did function as functioning lifeboats that night.
And the first 2 that were lowered, collapsible C, and you saw earlier, and now collapsible D, were lowered from the davits after the emergency boats were launched from those davits. The other 2 collapsible boats, which are stowed on the officers' quarters, we'll see those coming up here. They have a much tougher time.
Well, yeah, people have always complained that, or some people have theorized if the Titanic had just had more boats, everyone would have been saved. But she had 20 lifeboats and didn't even have time to launch all of those.
Sorry to interrupt. This is another favorite sequence of mine. Why? Because it's contiguous and continuous, and it's utilizing that set that Jim built. Everything you're seeing on this whole sequence, where she is running and where he is running, is exactly what was really there. Her running aft on A deck, it's just great. It's just, for the rivet counters out there that know the Titanic and have studied it so well, it's got to be one of the fondest sort of scenes. It puts you there on the ship.
And this is so great because it's so late in the sinking, and yet there's still so much drama yet to be acted out. Because now time is really critical for them. And yet here things just go from bad to worst.
And then the dam broke. Yikes.
Come on, move!
Here's that set again being used to its fullest extent, going deck by deck by deck down the stairs. B deck, C deck. Get out of my way.
And this great shot.
Yeah.
It's really something you had wished for, to be able to look down the stairwell into the water.
Uh-huh. And it's also like one of the paintings I did too, looking right down the well of the stair.
Yeah, so many of your paintings show up in this film. It's really impressive. And yeah, I think Jim is very appreciative, and he's very complimentary in ways like this. And I think it's an acknowledgement, of course, to your talent.
Thanks.
He shows these in there.
And they were surprises too. Almost all of them. I did not know he was doing a lot of this. There's that incredible set. You're seeing it full on the dining room.
All lit up and all set for breakfast.
Yeah.
This is so wonderful. You get so caught up that you forget.
Put the diamond in the coat.
And then you have to be reminded periodically.
I put the coat on her!
The set is actually sinking here. If you watch along the columns, you can see the water rising half an inch, another half an inch, another half an inch. There was a lot more in this whole sequence that was cut.
This is so genuine because the set is sinking into this tank.
Yeah.
And so the dishes, because they're replicas, really must have floated away from the tables.
Yeah, the little surprise things that happen that you just wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't, again, played it out exactly the way the real ship sank. And that's the way that room sank, and that's what happens. The chairs lift up and all float around in big groups. The china lifts off the soup bowls floating around.
Suddenly, the burden of caring for this little child as well as themselves.
It's always something that's been hard for me to grasp. That, and there are survivor accounts of, finding children, just by themselves. And I always wonder, how does a parent lose a child? Yeah, I'm not a parent with a child, so I obviously don't understand.
Children have a tendency to walk away. I know.
Guess so. I would just be so sure that they were sewn to my body with stitches, so that I wouldn't lose my child in a situation like this. I can't imagine doing it, but it happened that night.
Well, George Thomas, one of the survivors, told how his sister, the children used to go and play in empty staterooms in third class, and those became the playrooms. And his sister had gone into one and was playing and ended up falling asleep on the bed. And so, during the sinking, the mother had no idea where her daughter was. And then she had to leave her son alone. Well, she just went back one last time to go looking, went back to their cabin and found his sister. And, she'd woken up and come into the room. And so, for a while there, he was abandoned on deck. And for a while there, the daughter was sort of abandoned down below.
Yeah.
These things happen, horrible things. And people weren't as, I think, cautious back then about keeping an eye on their children every minute.
Wasn't there even one more of these closed gate sequences in the first cut of this film?
I want to say there might have been. There just might have been just one additional one.
One too many getting stuck behind a gate, and Jim excised that scene. I could be wrong.
These things that happen in your mind when you watch that, you wonder if they had been speaking a foreign language, would he have stopped for them?
Gosh.
But the fact that they were able to relate to him in English, did that make them worth saving in his mind? These things, obviously it's a fictional story, but, you just wonder if that sort of thing is sort of being conveyed here.
Yeah, because the guy almost changed his mind, and then he just, what the heck, I'll try to let him out. I'll take 10 seconds and try to let him out.
And probably he ended up dying.
Yeah.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if he were still on board as late as this after the boats were gone.
Oh, boy. It's hard for me to watch this.
I know. Don't you want to hold your breath? I mean, when you see them underwater every so often.
As I said, take me any other way, not drowning. Don't want to do that. And here we go again.
And even just as you said, the fact that the set is actually sinking, how close they were to having their heads hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
And, and yet they're doing this. They're going through this themselves.
I just don't recall the details of how it worked, but I'm sure there was an emergency. I mean, I'm sure Jim had a radio right there, and he could just say, stop.
There were probably guys with scuba gear nearby who were ready with the oxygen tanks, I'm sure. I mean, every safety precaution, was taken. I just remember there's always such a concern on the set for people's safety.
Yeah.
Because it's such an action-filled movie. I mean, so many things, like even right here, people standing that close to a lifeboat as it's falling from an upper deck.
Although they looked like just regular extras and actors, these were stunt people that were doing this really scary stuff.
Oh, yes.
Right around the boat.
There were stunt people all throughout this.
By the way, the scene we saw a moment ago with the water crashing over the forward end of A deck was another stunner. I just love that scene. Again, because it shows that this whole set was built to actually sink. Another abandoned child, or lost child.
Every time I'm in a long line at a department store or something, now I want to scream, I have a child, the way Cal does, to get to the head of the...
I have a child. I'm all she's got in the world.
And this, again, is a very controversial scene. Of course, Murdoch redeems himself by throwing back the money, but, even accidentally shooting a passenger at this point. Yeah, it's been, gotten a lot of bad publicity and taken a lot of heat for this scene right here.
Presumably, I guess, partially because he's shown so out of control. He's just so...
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all things. The fact that, he's, brandishing this gun and, lets it go so easily, that he fires.
Yeah.
And then now, of course, at this point, he commits suicide. And,
well,
I don't believe he committed suicide. I've never believed that. But, I have always defended Jim's right to put it in the movie only because I can't prove that it didn't happen.
There's nobody to prove or say that didn't happen. He just vanished during the night. He was gone.
That was it. They never found his body. They didn't find the bodies of anybody with bullet holes in them.
So they didn't recover any bodies, any bullets or bullet holes in...
And nobody had bullet holes. So they recovered over 360 bodies afterwards, and none of them were described as having bullet holes in them.
I think
it would have made the papers if it had.
I thought some mortician in Halifax had discovered
I've seen descriptions. The descriptions were everybody was very well documented as far as the description to help identify it. And, any physical characteristics, if they were wearing dentures or had ever broken an arm or something or had a tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often there's a little something that's come from another movie, such as A Night to Remember, which prior to Titanic was considered the best movie. And in this scene, you see this glass slide off the mantle, and that's similar to what happened in A Night to Remember. And I see it as Jim sort of tipping his hat to this earlier movie that was really quite good. But if you had to ask me today which movie is the most accurate and would best educate you about the sinking of the Titanic, it has to be this one. It has to be Titanic.
And I would say that definitely that's true, as regards the way the ship really looked and the ambiance on the real ship.
Yes.
This would be the movie to see.
And this is
because I'm the rivet counter and I'm all about sets and props and all of that stuff. So I can't vouch for the acting and who said what and who stood where as you can, but the sets are unsurpassed. He's just almost in a catatonic state at this point, by some accounts. Well, you can better address that again than I can because you're the passenger crew guy, but
he seemed to need a lot of help. A lot of the major decisions that were made that night were suggested to him. and then he would acknowledge them and agree with them.
Seemed to be have to be coaxed almost in a way.
Yeah, I
Shouldn't
think
we lower the boats now, sir? Yeah,
he'd certainly never been in this type of situation. He'd never had a ship sink out from under him before.
You can just imagine what he was going through. A wife and a child back home, and this is supposed to be the crown to a long career. This was the final round trip, taking the maiden voyage of Titanic. Once he returned to England on the eastbound voyage,
2,200 people under his care. Yeah. He knows they're not going to all survive,
and he was going to retire. I mean, he missed retiring by this one voyage, and this is the voyage that takes him out. He's got to be.
And this has always been very controversial. And what did the band play? And I certainly believe that "Nearer My God to Thee" was played, because there were so many people who remembered it and claimed afterwards that they heard it. And people have said, oh, no, that wouldn't be, or whatever. And yet, you can't argue with the witnesses. There's also talk that the Song d'Automne was played, but nobody ever claimed that they heard that. It's on the White Star Songbook. And Harold Bride said he heard the song Autumn, which was sort of a common name for it. But too many people claim to have heard Nearer My God to Thee. And so it had to have been played. And what would you play afterwards? Probably was the last song, because how do you follow up a song like that?
Mm-hmm. And which version of Nearer My God to Thee?
Yeah.
Probably the British.
Well, yeah, not the standard American version, although that's what we're hearing here, because it's certainly more recognizable to the audiences.
This is supposed to be Isidore and Ida Strout and their suite.
Although actually they were on deck because his body was recovered afterwards.
Yeah.
And in this case, Irish family. And, some Irish, and some of the third-class passengers just went back to their staterooms to just wait for the end. They just sort of given up.
Calm before the final storm.
Yes.
If you can call this calm.
Yeah, you wonder at what point they realized that their chances were over.
Remember how your heart was pounding watching this being filmed?
Oh.
It was in this big tank, and we were on the berm along the edge of the tank watching this thing sink and seeing that davit number 1 there, the forward davit for Lifeboat 1, going under the water in the exact angle that it is today on the wreck, raised back up in a desperate attempt to put Collapsible A in there.
And watching Collapsible A just sort of float up as the water pushed aft.
It's going to take us down. The boats are going to, they had to cut the falls to make sure that the boat would be free of it. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Certainly not willing to carry the little girl anymore.
Gosh.
Just couldn't stand him.
What a nightmarish situation.
Oh.
There it goes.
And this is, the beginning of the end. The bow is now going under, and this is it. The ship is beginning to founder. Here's Benjamin Guggenheim, who's dressed up in his best, and which really happened. He really went back to his room with his valet, and they changed into tuxedos to go down like gentlemen.
Dressed in our best. First class entrance, port side. There it goes.
Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight.
This scene was incredible. The collapsing windows all at once, that was phenomenal. So many of these sinking scenes, it's almost like they could only be done once, because rebuilding the set was just too much of a task.
But he did. They'd shoot this whole thing one time and then crank the thing back up and dry off the decks and maybe do it the next night. I don't know how many times they did this, but it was more than once, wasn't it?
Well, this they could. Yeah, they could crank it back up again. They
not the smashing through.
Yeah, smashing of windows. It's a bigger.
That's a one-time thing, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, but
it's just looking the length of it and just seeing all these people just running and everything.
Yeah, this is a lot of CG work because the ship was not at that angle. It's a slightly tipped camera and adding more down below in the lower part of the hull.
You have to stay on the ship as long as possible. Come on.
And the blending of the sinking riser, what they called the riser, the forward part, with the aft part, which was the model.
with the windows, it never occurred to me that, of course, windows collapsing and people being sucked in through them.
Yeah.
I mean, these things that he was able to recreate, which we had no testimony of.
The playing out of the real thing at this point during the filming of the staircase here, the actual staircase broke away in the set and floated up. And they had to reshoot that with it more anchored down. And that's now how we feel the actual staircase left the Titanic, because there's no remains of it today in the wreck, that it actually may have lifted out of the ship.
Again, just crowds of extras all over the stern. And then the chief baker, who's pretty much drunk
at this point. Yeah.
Yes. He's going to
quite
survive.
A story.
Yeah.
So many stories.
Oh, and things I never thought of, the snapping of the cables when the funnel started to collapse.
Boy. That was witnessed by a number of survivors, that funnel falling and crashing into the water. Incredibly, the ship's lights were still burning at this point, by all accounts.
Yeah, phenomenally so. I just can't imagine, them staying lit for so long.
Now the grand staircase is dipped far enough below the water.
And this is a one-shot deal because, of course, once all what I guess was a heavy wax that they used for glass so that it would shatter. But once that was broken, you couldn't redo it. These are some of my favorite scenes.
That was a miniature corridor. I think the corridor was maybe, 4 feet, 3 feet wide or something like that.
I remember one account by one gentleman who jumped from the stern. He said it just seemed to take forever to hit the water. And even the people in the lifeboats, as dark as it was, certainly there's a little license here with the lighting. They said they could see people leaping from the ship as well. Father Biles, a minister, a priest from second class who went back into third, giving last rites to people.
That's the miniature stern again. 1/8, I think 1/8 scale.
Again, there are a lot of dummies throughout the stern section there, so that if people accidentally slid and fell, they at least have something to bump into, and they would be somewhat padded.
There was no more sea.
Did we mention about the whole poop deck being on its own separate
No.
tilting thing?
They could lift the poop deck off the set it on a gimbal, and it would actually tilt, and they could angle it up to whatever they wanted.
Go down to Rosarito to the studio, and you'd see it, the poop deck, fitted to the ship set one time. The next time you go down, it'd be off the ship set and off to the side on the gimbal, where they'd be doing that, and then back on the. Seems to me it went back and forth a couple of times. I could be wrong.
There shall be no more death. Neither shall
I had fantasies as an extra being on the stern section there, but I have a feeling a lot of those people were probably stunt people.
has passed away.
These great images again. I love the dishes falling off the shelf.
Yeah.
I hate to see them broken, but it's a wonderful visual.
Bloody pull faster and pull!
Gosh.
This whole feeling in the lifeboats that you had to get away, that the suction of the ship going down would draw the lifeboats underwater as well.
The promenade deck. Didn't people have little wheels underneath their life jackets so they'd roll along the deck?
There were things, like there were little, call it a skateboard or something under some of these people. Yeah. But it's interesting because now we've seen Trudy sort of, get it in the end. everybody
was that she?
That was Trudy, the maid, and
wow.
Everybody who knew that Jack was on board, was going to die in this, of course, except for Rose and her mother. But all the people who were closest to them.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that, of course, is all computer animated. I've had people ask me if that man was hurt when they were filming.
Oh, gee.
Real tight.
Yeah, there's such a story about the chief baker there, which, you could tell it better than I could, how he
basically
survived.
Drank so much, which should have made him freeze to death more quickly, and he ended up in the water and the entire night until morning.
God almighty.
Now, the ship, of course, was absolutely not designed to withstand this kind of stress, to have that many thousands of tons hanging out of the water at an angle like that, unsupported. And the inevitable result, will soon happen here. And we start to see fracturing. If you look carefully along the hull, start to see some porthole rims.
Oh, they just come flying off the ship.
Yeah.
It's just great.
There's Lovejoy, mysteriously bloody all of a sudden. There's a story behind
a miniature of the lounge crushing down.
Yeah.
Yes, in a scene that was cut out.
Yeah.
Lovejoy gets into a little bit of a fight with Jack.
Scuffle with Jack in the dining saloon, which is
this is so great.
Deleted theme.
Of course, the first movie ever to show the ship breaking into the way it actually did when it sank. And just, it's clean as a knife through butter is the way some of the survivors said who were close by.
I find that awfully hard to believe myself. It just doesn't seem physically.
And yet that's what they described.
Plausible. I think actually, if I could do this movie over again, I'd have the breakup farther under the water. I think it's out too high in the air. I think the breakup happened more at the water line. But what do I know? It seemed as if it was a little bit too clean a break and a little bit too high out of the water. And I think Jim agrees with that in retrospect.
You got to go with what people saw. So funny how the very
go back down though, almost level with the water.
Yes. Yeah, people thought it was going to float on its own,
and both on the ship and in lifeboats watching said it's going to float. It's going to float.
Well, it's funny that Jack and Rose, some of the best moments in the movie are at the very stern and at the very bow.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the account of one man in one of the lifeboats who was still fairly close, and he said he looked at one of the portholes, and for a few moments there, it just didn't get any nearer to the water.
Mm.
And this is that time when that's happening. It's just frozen.
Some have asked me about this sequence in the movie. How could the stern just stick straight up like that and just stay there? That's impossible. What would hold it up? Well, you've got the incredible weight of the engines that are still mounted within the stern. And that weight is a huge counterbalance down there, and that's what's holding it down in the water like that and holding that lighter end of the stern straight up in the air. And those engines are still standing in the stern today. At least 3/4 of the reciprocating engines are still mounted in the stern. And here the last hurrah, the bursting of increased pressure, blowing out windows and portholes, which is what happens when real ships sink.
The stern takes such a beating. The bow went under so slowly.
The air that is trapped in compartments inside as it descends into the water, and the water pressure increases and increases outside. There you see some portholes with the spray being forced out.
The ship is going to suck us down. Take a deep breath when I say.
And there were actually a few people up where Jack and Rose are, the baker, and several others who were able to swim away and survive. And just imagine riding that stern down like an elevator the way they did.
And there's even one account, I don't know by whom, I forget, but who said he swam off without even getting his head wet.
The chief baker again.
That was he?
Yeah.
So perhaps this turbulence is a little bit overdone here in the film.
One of the other guys said he was drawn down. He estimated about 12 feet.
Ah.
And so, but I think the baker was just right at the point. Of course, he was so drunk, maybe he just claimed he didn't get his head wet, and maybe he was exaggerating.
Yeah.
He might not have even remembered exactly.
one of my favorite scenes being the letters of Titanic.
Oh, sinking away from them underwater. It's just
brilliant.
Incredible.
Brilliant. And I saw some of those letters in 2001 from the submarine from Mir 2 on the Ghost of the Abyss expedition. Dropped down briefly to take a quick look, waiting for Jim to come by in Mir 1, and we could make out a couple of the letters in Liverpool. And to my knowledge, no one had seen them before.
Now, this is incredible. This is what we always call the Gone with the Wind shots, where the camera just pans back.
Yeah.
And as far as the eye can see, because you've got, 1,600 people in the water.
A lot of compositing here to get.
Oh, yes. But worth it.
It's almost too brief. I want to take it in longer. It's horrific to look at, but it cuts real quickly to the close-up after that. And it's almost like I want to take that in. I want to see the result of this here. What it means.
Seems like just the best thing, to do in that situation, if you're going to die, is to be able to freeze to death in the water, rather than drowning or whatever.
Yes.
Apparently, it isn't so much you freeze to death, it's that you take such shallow breath that you never actually draw air into your lungs. You only draw it into your esophagus.
Yeah.
And so you suffocate at the surface.
Your breathing goes... It's this real fast, shallow breathing, and it's so fast that is it called hyperventilating?
No, I don't believe so.
I don't know what but and also, freezing to death like this is supposedly not an unpleasant way to go.
Peaceful. I mean, the survivors who were pulled out of the water said they could just feel their limbs stiffening up. And, those who were...
You actually go through spells of feeling really warm after a while. There are different phases of freezing to death. And they've found bodies of people who have frozen in the snow and so forth, where they've actually taken off their clothes at some point because they started to feel so hot. These are the last phases of... But your core temperature is the last thing to go and all that. But... So people didn't so much drown in the sinking of Titanic, but they...
No, and when they found the bodies afterwards, they all looked like they were sleeping.
They all bobbing up and down in their life jackets. They looked like a sea full of seagulls, something like that.
People thought they just, you saw this white out there floating around.
These little white specks.
All the people in the lifeboats out there, listening to all the screams. And, some boats just too full to come back, but, so many others too far away or too afraid, thinking that all these people would just pull them under.
Edwina Mackenzie always called it the scream of death.
Yes.
Worse than any siren. Something that all survivors will never forget.
Yeah, the survivors always said they could still hear it. They just could never forget it. I love the line here. The sad thing is that this lifeboat story wasn't really fully developed, because part of it is that they were able to row towards, light in the distance, although they never got any nearer, it seemed. But in order for that to happen here, they would have had to introduce the fact that there was another ship out there, and then you enter the controversy of what ship was it, and it's already a better than 3-hour movie.
Right.
It's an incredible boat. Molly Brown, Hitchens at the tiller, who was at, the wheel at the time of the collision. The lookout aside of the iceberg is in the boat. And, some incredibly prominent women. It's really almost a story in itself, just the one lifeboat. And here we've got the fifth officer, Lowe, who's gathered some boats together, and he's taking most of the women and children out of his own and transferring them to others to go back and, pick up people. But the problem is he's waited. He had said later he waited till the cries died down so that it wouldn't be as crowded. And, of course, basically he waited till most of the people had died.
It's always been hard for me to understand why some of the least filled boats wouldn't go back. I still just can't imagine it.
Disorganization, you name it. the third officer had two boats tied together. He could have put all his passengers into just one boat and didn't, and didn't go back. And actually, he was ready to go back, but the passengers talked him out of it. And just, too much disorganization, too much chaos.
It just doesn't connect in my mind.
Yeah,
you have
very
loved
hard.
ones out there. Your own brother, your own father, your own grandfather, whatever, is out there. And as long as you have some space in your boat, I don't care if most of the people in your boat are saying, no, I don't want to. I'd be screaming bloody murder.
Well, and if you have the opportunity, like when you've got two boats tied together, they're half empty, put everybody in one who doesn't want to go back.
I know, yeah.
Listen, Rose. You're going to get out of here. You're going to go on.
Now, she's on this fragment of paneling from the first class lounge.
Yes.
Again, based on a real fragment of paneling from the first class lounge that actually was found floating after the disaster and recovered by one of the ships that was sent out to pick up bodies. And it's currently in the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax. It was made a little bit larger than real life here for the movie. But another interesting thing to ponder is that a large section of the grand staircase was spotted by one of these ships as well that was sent out to pick up bodies. It's reported that we saw deck chairs, we picked up so many bodies, and we saw, a large section of what looked like a grand staircase. So if that's true, one has to wonder, if any of these people in the water may have tried to clamber onto it.
Well, several crew members did. Harold Phillimore, one of the stewards, climbed onto, I think what he said was part of a staircase, and it was big enough to hold him and another gentleman. And just before they were rescued, the other man just muttered, "What a night," and rolled off into the water. And Phillimore himself when Fifth Officer Lowe's boat came along, couldn't even climb into it. He had to be helped in because his limbs were so stiff by that point that he had to be helped in. And so, apparently there was one large piece out there that was able to support a few people. Just unfortunately, one of the two didn't last long enough.
It's a shame that more people couldn't have tried to climb onto that, but
so many people were so close to surviving. People who passed away just before rescue arrived. And again, another one of those great, what we call Gone with the Wind shots. I mean, just in the, illuminating them with the flashlights. Just, horrible scenes here.
The water, again, 28 degrees.
Edith Haseman, who was in this boat at this time, we both knew. I said it was horrible seeing all these bodies. And, they'd pick out a voice in the distance and try to row towards it, and then it would die away before they could get to it, because they could only go by the sound. They didn't have these flashlights as they do in the movie. Just very, very dark. And, pushing the people out of the way and everything. It's all very accurate.
Careful with your oars.
These poor extras who just had to fake death, and you get the oar dripped water on your face, you couldn't flinch, or suddenly you'd be alive, and that would spoil the shot.
All made up to look frozen. Wax in their hair and all over their face.
Dead Irish mommy, she's called.
Holding a baby.
One of the extras told me it was very strange standing behind her in line for lunch one day because she had the baby still attached to her. And of course, it's just a mannequin, but it looked like a woman standing there with a dead baby attached to her shoulder.
Can anyone hear me?
Going back to the who survived on what, and why didn't people do this? Why didn't people make more rafts out of tying deck chairs together? There's all these, what ifs, and why didn't they do this and do that? And one of the ones that's periodically debated is why didn't they just once Smith knew that the ship was doomed, why didn't he just look for an iceberg and pull up next to it? And he knew there weren't enough lifeboats for everybody to be saved. Why didn't he just let everybody clamber onto an iceberg? And of course, that's very it's tempting to toss ideas like that around, but the the problem of actually logistically trying to find an iceberg that's the right height that is actually even with a door.
Oh, when you're on a ship that Thomas Andrews said it didn't think would last more than an hour.
Yeah. I mean,
it's stupid. You can't give up your lifeboat launching time to do that.
No, to be, steering around looking for a potential iceberg that might work, or possibly going back to the one that was there. You ran into one, so you could start searching for it again, but that's precious lost time when you could be trying to save at least those on board who you can.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to make decisions like that.
It's easy to second guess in hindsight all these things. Why didn't they do this? Why were they going so fast? Why didn't they heed the ice warnings? But you have to put yourself in the mindset at that particular time and take that into account. These weren't stupid people. These weren't drunken sailors. Smith was not drunk. Titanic was not out to break a speed record in terms of anything other than potentially trying to beat Olympics record. She wasn't the fastest ship on the ocean by any means. There's so many myths surrounding this whole thing.
This is very telling. Of course, Jack has had to stay in the water and he dies, and Rose gets up out of the water and survives. And that really was true of the people who ended up in the water. If you could get out of the water, your chances of survival were so much better. Mm-hmm. Except for the chief baker, the only person to stay in the water through the night. And the people who were able to either get up onto one of the collapsibles or were hauled out of the water into a lifeboat were much, much more likely to survive.
Inexplicable how Baker Charles Yowen, or however his name is pronounced, did survive being so immersed in that 28-degree water for so long hours. I just don't know how. And to carry on, it wasn't like he lost limbs to frostbite.
Physically impossible.
Nothing. He went on to serve all the way on to the Queen Elizabeth in the 1940s and 50s.
The two collapsibles that floated away, the one that floated upside down, everybody who got onto it was able to get up out of the water. And then Cal's boat floated away, swamped, collapsible C, and had water in it that people had to stand in. And fewer people survived in that because, of course, water conducts heat or conducts cold, I guess you could say, more than air. And so if you were in the water, you lost body heat so much more quickly.
I promise.
This is a long ordeal for these actors, a long, protracted shoot.
Months and months.
And so faithful, so many of them, the majority, so faithful to the production, and to this day say they would do it again in a heartbeat, despite what you read, about mutinies and injuries on the set and so forth. It just is not true. It was tough and challenging to shoot all this.
Well, it had to be. I mean, look at what they were shooting. I mean, there's no doubt. This is so great, this scene with just the sound, ringing in her ears as she comes back to the present time. I wonder if you were to add up all the time that Gloria Stewart's in the film, how many minutes it really adds up to. But it's such a, compelling role, and so important to the storyline.
100.
Yeah, and they're just the right amount of the flashbacks.
Yes.
They don't become jerky or burdensome, overbearing. They're gently done.
Or the flash forward.
Yeah. They're just right.
Last look.
Icy dawn.
It's one of the most emotional times, I think, was when the sun came up, because so many people talked about, the sunlight suddenly hitting the icebergs all around them, and, people who didn't expect to see daylight again.
In rainbow colors.
Yeah, just, the mauves and the corals and things like that. And I remember Edwina Mackenzie saying that she just didn't think her nose would ever thaw out. You know, she'd just been sitting there freezing cold all night long. And then this great scene.
Yeah, this is taken off a Colin Campbell Cooper painting, almost exactly.
Yeah, one of the passengers of the Carpathia who painted it later. And it's just, to me, it's just so wonderful, the idea of, you know, this rescue ship, as small as it is, you know, compared to the Titanic.
Forward decks of Carpathia. And
Sir, I don't think you...
piles of life jackets in the background there.
When they got to New York, people were cutting them up and selling squares, you know, from them.
Mm-hmm. Today, over 90 years later, maybe 6, 7, 8 life jackets survive intact in various museums and collections around the world.
Yeah, few and far between. Close to 700 from the time. This really is, you know, one of the few, if not the only Titanic movie that really deals with the post-sinking. They always seem to end when the ship went under the water.
That's the last time
You know, we're right at the rescue, and yet, you know, here we actually see the ship arriving in New York in a few minutes.
It just amazes me that Jim would build this whole set for Carpathia, the forward part, the bridge, the forward deck, and all that, just for this brief little sequence.
Well, actually, I thought a chunk of it was the poop deck that they took off the stern of the Titanic and it's modified to look like the Carpathia.
Could have been, yeah. Forgot.
And of course, by the time the Carpathia reached New York, it was just pouring rain.
Rose Dawson.
Thank you.
And that was just a horrible ride for those few days with all the lightning and thunder. It was just nerve-wracking for the people after what they'd been through already. And it's one of those great lines that everybody repeats all the time, too.
Yeah.
Woman's heart being a deep ocean of secrets. Just so many lines from the movie I hear repeated over and over again, just in conversation and different places. And,
yeah, I do it myself every now and then.
Oh, same here.
It's weird. Scary. Goodbye to Titanic.
Yeah. Looking and looking for the diamond. As far as he knows, it's not there.
No, I was saving this for when I found the diamond.
When you think about it, though, I mean, just the quest of finding one diamond, you know, the size of, you know, a large nugget in a ship the size of the Titanic in an ocean the size of the Atlantic.
3 years. I've thought of nothing except Titanic, but I never got it. I never let it in.
Such a moral at the end sort of thing that he finally understands what it's all about. And this is great. So many people have commented about, you know, Rose being 101 years old and that she still paints her toenails. But then if you ask, you know, any woman, well, would you if you were 101 and could? And they all say, well, yeah. So, but it's funny, you know, that they don't think of that at first. And the idea that she's out, you know, at the side of the Titanic, you know, this is where it all happened, you know, so many years earlier. And
it's weird to stand there at that rail and look down into those black waters.
Think how deep it is.
And yeah, to imagine the ship down there and how far away it would be and how small it would be.
Yeah, 2.5 miles down, just straight down.
I think we figured out that the bow section would be, you know, about the length of half of your little finger at arm's length. You know, it just...
This is always so funny because, like, earlier, when Cal suddenly realizes that she has the diamond in her pocket, because you forget about the diamond up to that point in the excitement. And now you've forgotten again with all the excitement that's happened. And the first time I saw this, it's like, oh, that's right. It's all about the diamond. And she had it the whole time.
Got to admit, when you see this for the first time, you kind of wince.
Oh.
You just go, what are you doing?
Well, at that age,
yeah,
it's not going to buy her much.
Oh, and the way, I don't know, the compositing of this is just, there isn't a bump or a glitch anywhere.
Mm-mm.
That rotating jewel over her head, and then this camera move, which moves past all the pictures and over her face so closely without a flinch.
Oh, it's just, it just moves so smoothly. And all the frames, all the photos, all the things that they talked about, she went out and did. And there's so many messages and so many little things that follow on each other throughout the whole movie. It's not a simple story. It's not a very, write it out on a page kind of thing.
Various layers to it that you get the more you see it.
Yeah.
Each time you see it.
And then the whole discussion, is she alive or dead? Is she dreaming or is she dying? What's going on here? And this of course, is just one of the best scenes in the whole movie. This, going back and then the transition and everybody being there. I mean, it just, it really ends on a note that, it just makes you want to cry with happiness almost. They're reunited, but it's over, and, it's so strange. And, all these people are back again. It's just genius to think of something like this.
I still do not know how they blended these two together as well as they did. It must have been very challenging. Between the rec miniature and the full-size set.
Yes.
Well, the rec miniature and the non-rec miniature promenade, and then into this, the full-size set. 3 different things.
All the victims back on the ship, still there. Sort of, reminds me of people, like Ruth Blanchard or Frank Goldsmith, the survivors, who've had their ashes scattered where the Titanic went down. It's like their way of returning to the wreck. And that sort of, comes across here, and the way Rose has gone back.
Remember when we saw this for the first time at the premiere, the Chinese theater?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the finished film for the
Chinese,
first time, and the excitement, the electricity that went through all of us.
Oh.
Before it started, and then at the end here, when his name just there came up on the screen, the applause.
Well, seldom is there such an anticipated movie.
Oh, gosh.
Where people cheered at the previews for months and months.
Oh, yeah, the anticipation, no question about it. Which, of course, made the whole project a real big target, too. That's what goes with the territory.
Yeah, but it's just funny in the different attitudes people had. There was a lot of, obviously, press that, it was, over budget, it'd be a disaster, whatever. And yet, down on the movie set in Rosarito, there was such an energy, and everybody down there just assumed it was going to be successful. And, when you worked on it, you knew. And I think that's how you can tell. It isn't, your perception from afar. I think when you work on any production, it tells. You can kind of tell by the way it's coming together whether it's going to be successful or not.
Well, my partner Vern, throughout the production of this and going down to the sets and so forth, he said at one point, long before the film was released, he said, "You watch, this will be the first $1 billion grossing movie in history." And I said, "How do you know?" He follows that movie stuff. He just said, "Watch." And I thought, well, I hope it just makes back the expense.
Well, we knew it would.
But to be the kind of runaway hit that it was, he somehow, I don't know, he somehow sensed with the actors, the choice of actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, and he was right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a long, long time before any movie surpasses this.
Some magic to it that particularly appeals to the teenage set who would go, teenage females who would go multiple times. My own sisters. I have
Well, they weren't teenagers.
Three sisters, but even they were not teenagers at the time, but they went again and again and again.
And people I've talked to who, they didn't go with any expectations, and they ended up just crying and crying, and just, not really understanding why, the way it just grabs you and it affects you. There's just something about it that just, affects everybody differently and, draws people back, for whatever reasons.
So what is it about this song by James Horner, I think, wrote it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Celine Dion, of course, singing it. Now, why is this a cliche? Why do people wince and say, that, I don't know how to express it, but I mean...
I haven't seen that happen.
Oh my gosh, you look on the internet and people say, nice movie, except for that darn ending song, that Celine Dion song. And it's become a cliche. Yeah, but Celine Dion sings it. How good can it be type of stuff. And I think it's fantastic. What possible music could you have at the end of this film that would be better than this? I think what people are objecting to or have objected to maybe is the fact that it's gotten so much exposure because the film was so successful.
Well, I think that's all it is. It's like it's, when something...
But I never get tired of listening to it. I personally just think it's wonderful.
Well, it is. And some things have to stand the test of time. You may hear it too much that you get tired of it at some point, but in the long run, 10 years from now, will you still be enjoying it? And that's whether something really to me is good or not is if it stands the test of time. And I think the music from Titanic will always stand the test of time.
Yeah. There are those who are just actively, resentfully against certain things for no other reason than because the rest of the world loves it. And Titanic, because it, again, is so big and such a success, it has big, detractors that will post things and put things on internet sites and things that are just way out in left field. They come up with mistakes in the movie that aren't really mistakes at all. Criticize this, criticize that. And I just think we owe such an incredible debt to Jim, to the studios that, bravely agreed to finance this, to...
Well, and everybody who gave up their lives pretty much for the whole filming.
Oh, gosh, for years.
Yeah. Just the incredible talent that went into this movie. And I think that's part of what makes something a success. It isn't just, one person, leading it. It's that person being able to collect talented people. And, Jim has certainly been very good at that, is surrounding himself with really talented people who can make a film like this that's so successful and so loved by so many people.
Yeah. It's, as I've said many times, my expertise or my interest is mostly in the physical end of the ship and trying to make the sets accurate and all that. And just looking at that end of it, that's where my great appreciation comes from, is how he has breathed life back into Titanic more than anyone has in the past. There have been authors, Walter Lord certainly, with his A Night to Remember, which really brought the story to life, and in the modern age, really like nothing had before it. Started the whole era of Titanic, really, in the latter part of the 20th century, where it just didn't exist before he wrote A Night to Remember. But without question, Jim Cameron has brought Titanic to more people in such a compelling way with this film. With its flaws, whatever may be there, it's still the overall thing. You have to look at the overall picture, which is just utterly compelling. There's no other word for it. And again, the making the ship come back to life, sparkling again in the sunshine, brand new again. That's the thing that just makes my tail wag.
Cutting edge technology for the time too. It wasn't like, let's just take what's out there and do it. Let's do this, whatever we have to do. And if it means creating new technology and doing computer graphics that had never been done before, I mean, that's really what makes it special, is that Jim went beyond the norm to get it done and really came out with, something that was far and away, superior to what had been done before. And it's been copied in a number of movies since.
So this is Ken Marshall, and I just want to thank everybody for